Now it's warm.
Well, the heat normally shuts off.
All righty. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Tonight's Groveland Board of Selectmen meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. I see it's 6:31, and if you'll all please join and rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I see there's no public comment, so we'll move right on to the approval of the warrants. Motion to approve payroll warrant 19-29 in the amount of $151,433.71.
Seconded.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Motion to approve bill warrant 19-29 in the amount of $758,059.37, which breaks down as follows. Town, $81,089.14. Water and sewer, $5,792.04. Payroll withholdings, $2,431. Grants and revolving, light bills, $326,266.21. Grants and revolving, $16,354.66. Whittier assessment, $302,840. And capital, $23,286.32.
Seconded.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the matter? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Terrific. Moving right along, we have the appointments, promotion of Caitlin Gilbert to Treasury Collections Clerk to the position of Assistant Treasurer Collector, effective January 23rd, 2019, at a rate of $26 per hour. Caitlin, she's
No,
working?
she's already been working here, so I didn't find it necessary for her to come tonight.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to promote Caitlin Gilbert from Treasury Collections Clerk to the position of Assistant Treasury Collections Clerk, effective January 23rd, 2019, at a rate of $26 an hour.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the matter?
No, just to clarify, this was discussed in a previous meeting, when we discussed about taking her from the position she's in now and morphing her into the new position, am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think she does a great job.
Yeah, I mean, just moved right up.
What was the former clerk, what was she getting for pay over this?
It was higher than this. This is lower than the previous position holder.
And this current person actually has better skills and experience? No, it's similar?
She was the Assistant Treasurer Collector in Newbury before coming here, so it's very
yeah, but-
comparable knowledge and experience.
Okay, so it's a kind of a lateral move.
And the position's not costing us more money?
It is not, no.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, all those in favor? All right, moving right along, we have discussion and possible vote. We have the Haverhill Community Rowing Group to discuss potential usage of the Pines. All righty, who is the spokesperson? Step right up to the podium. We don't bite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this working? I don't hear myself talk, but I'm imagining it's working
Is
for
the green light on?
It
Then
is.
it's working.
Good evening. Thank you for having me and the group here tonight. My name is Karen Conard. I'm the Executive Director of the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and I was last before you, 6, 7, 8 months ago for the Housing Production Plan. So it's nice to be back here in Groveland. I am joined by a small group of a larger cohort of people, and we're here to tell you what we've been doing with regard to a conversation about advancing a community rowing boathouse. I am joined by Ellen Minsner. Ellen is the Director of Inclusion and Advocacy for Community Rowing, Inc. Allison Hartquist, Chief of Staff for Haverhill Mayor Jim Fiorentini. Tim Jordan, Haverhill City Councilor and father of a Haverhill High School rowing team member. Dan Thornton, Pentucket High Athletic Director, and Tom O'Brien, Haverhill High Athletic Director. And, sorry, do you have the ability to advance?
Yep,
Oh, I hate to leave that to you, Denise, I'm
that's
sorry.
okay, I'm good.
We won't take up too much of your time. We are here to tell you what we've been doing and to essentially look for your feedback. We are a group that got together at the suggestion of former State Senator Kathleen O'Connor Ives, who was very interested in siting a community rowing facility in the city of Haverhill, and was joined early on by City Councilor Tim Jordan in advancing that effort. So a bunch of us got together fairly informally, starting in the July-August timeframe, to try and advance that conversation and figure out where the best spot might be, who the user or the end users might be, and to start really advancing the conversation, if you will. And long story short, we looked at all the sites in Haverhill and found that the best, most advantageous site for rowing may not be in Haverhill. And as we were doing that, we were also trying to decide who were the needs that we were trying to meet in addition to Haverhill High School. That got us to thinking about other high school programs, other partners, and it led us to a conversation that led us to Denise, because people familiar with the river know that the Pines is a place that is the most navigable in this immediate area, and it's where the Haverhill High team currently operates out of, in fairly informal fashion, but it's safe to do so, and that's where they've been. So we asked Denise to join the conversation, and that has led us to running all of what we've been doing in the last 6 months by you informally. So that's really the nuts and bolts of it. I'm going to ask Ellen to come up and hit some of the questions, and then I will be back to talk about funding and costs and next steps. So if I could, I'm going to turn things over to Ellen.
Thank you, Karen, for the introduction, and thank you for allowing us to speak here tonight. A little bit more background about myself is that I'm actually from the city of Lawrence and have been involved to a certain degree in several of the other rowing initiatives that have happened in the Merrimack Valley over the last, 10 years or so. I've always thought that the Merrimack River would be a great place for rowing. The river is such a huge resource, and as many of the towns along the river know, always looking for creative ways to utilize that for the best interest of the town and the residents. So I'm a rowing enthusiast. Much of my background has been in the community rowing type of programming. Community rowing in Boston is one of the largest public access rowing organizations in the world, and I've been there for 9 years, leading all of their outreach programs that cater to the specific needs of the community. So I think rowing is a fantastic sport for young people and adults to be involved in. For the young people, there are potential for collegiate rowing opportunities for the town, but otherwise, it's just a great outdoor recreation that's very healthy and can really help generate a thriving community. So I've been in Haverhill now, would love to see more rowing, low impact on the environment, very healthy, a sport that's also very amenable to folks with disabilities, veterans community. Those are two of our strongest programs in Boston, is the veterans program and the program for people with disabilities. And from what I've seen over the years, rowing has been growing. Pardon the rhyme there, but it really isn't going away. For a sport that many people haven't really heard of, there are lots of these, small grassroots programs springing up in the public school sector, which is great. 15, 20 years ago, the only way you're going to row is if you're at Phillips Academy or a prep school or an Ivy League rowing institution. Now that's really changing quite a bit. There are a number of programs up along the river. Most of the growth is coming from the public school and the community sector. Haverhill itself has 65 students, even though they have very little infrastructure right now. They've got a great program going with some equipment and a good knowledgeable coach. And with very little support, suddenly a team of 65 athletes, which is a great asset for college or high school programs. The squads are huge. You can get a lot of kids involved who are not necessarily going to make some of your other varsity sports. There's just so many more opportunities than there are on, say, a basketball team. So that's a great benefit. Promoting healthy river recreation for your own people in the community as well as visitors from the community. And as I said earlier, to compete at the collegiate level is a really strong possibility, because at the college level, the squads are just as big, 60 60 athletes to a squad, which is, really opens up the opportunities. Do you want me to go on? You all know what a great facility you have here. Do you want me to keep going on that front and why I think it's amenable, or? Yeah. The boat ramp you have here is amazing. One of the limiting factors that, everyone always asks me, because I'm in the community and I'm fairly well-known and I'm a friend to many programs, I'd love to see them successful. What does it take to have a rowing? You need a long-term lease and a dock, or long-term access to a place and a dock. So some of the bumps in the road that we run into in other sites that would otherwise be wonderful for rowing is the fact there's not a dock. So having a dock here already is amazing, because it's already permitted, you may get some improvements to it. I think it also is we were just talking earlier on the way in, like, this is such a great setup here. We have so many amenities in one space. You can serve a lot of multiple users, and you schedule it at different times so those user groups don't bump into one another. Those are real positives that I see for the program. We want to be very careful, and as Karen mentioned, we want to get some feedback about, one of the possible negative impacts we see, or one we want to really make sure we take care of, is parking. That's a high-use area. You want to make sure that any new use doesn't negatively impact the other users, so we want to get your feedback about that. I have a feeling that it can be solved by just scheduling and figuring out off-peak hours. And then we also want to make sure that overall impact for current users in general, we would hope it would be, seen as a positive or an advancement, so. Yes.
Yeah, certainly.
You said there's 65 members on the row right now?
For Havel, yeah.
For Haverhill, how many teams is that?
That was one team.
Well,
Is
they
that
don't all
girls
fit in
and
one,
boys?
Boys and
Boys and girls, they tend
they
to
don't
have.
all fit in one boat, I mean, how many?
Yeah. Oh,
Sculls
how
or
many,
whatever it's
how many
called.
crews? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, usually the 8-person rowing shell is a typical way to race in high schools.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about rowing is everybody gets to compete. You have a squad, everyone's going to race. First boat of Haverhill races first boat of Kentucket, second, third. You race your whole roster all the way down. So everyone gets to be part of the travel squad. But I don't know the exact breakdown of boys and girls with Haverhill, but 65 total, including both squads. So, a couple of
that's-
days.
About half and half, boys and girls.
And that's the groups I see springtime, summertime, fall, going down the river. I thought that was college kids from Northern Essex.
Yeah, maybe that could be a user group too. I don't really know. I think Haverhill High only does spring and
Spring and
fall.
fall.
There's currently no rowing that is outside of the
School
school
year.
timeframe. Yeah. And we'll talk about a couple of different models, that there are a number of ways you could do a program like this. You could keep it strictly scholastic and function in that really tight window, or you could open it up to the community, which is something I would advocate for, but, you guys have to decide what's best for the community.
And just one more question, where do you launch now?
They're
Well, the crew
they're
team
down
is
at the Pines, yeah.
Is that the Pines?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
See them on the dock.
Yeah.
Taken out.
okay, I had no
Yeah.
idea,
Very orderly.
yeah. I liked watching
That's
them, I
the
mean,
way
I
we
stop
like
at the
it
river
going.
sometimes and watch them go up and down.
I had the pleasure, because we had fall baseball down there,
Mhm.
of watching them quite often, and it was a pretty fair mix, 50-50,
Yeah.
male to female, I noticed.
Yeah, yeah.
They all pick up that boat. Go on.
So always when people think about rowing, I think maybe they have images in their head of like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a huge boathouse and big building, and it can be the gamut. There are highly successful programs around the country that literally operate on outdoor racks and a chain link fence. One of them is really successful out in Tempe, Arizona. It's all under a highway overpass. I mean, so it can be done as low profile as you want, or, you want the Taj Mahal, you can spend a huge capital campaign. But I think the main thing people really should look at is, the range of what might be available and appropriate. And, some of them can be a basic, like a post and beam type of shell house where you're just really housing the equipment. You're not trying to run indoor sessions there, or a lot of other activity other than just taking the rowing shells out, doing a practice, putting them away. There are a few boathouses in the area that function along that line. And there's one that we'll see that's a joint boathouse that serves Wellesley College varsity program. They're a top Division III national champion. and Day, which is a prep school that competes in the New England League. And they share that boathouse successfully and have for the last few years. And they're fairly competitive, that house, but it's pretty small in stature. You can see it kind of tucks nicely into the profile. So I believe that's still a dirt floor. That's where community rowing started, I don't know, like 30 years ago. But there's indoor racks along each side of that bay. It's essentially a garage with boats on either side. And then there's a couple of other photos that show the outside. Some more outdoor racks, could be even for kayaks or other type of structures. And those are fours. Those are four-person racing shells right there along the other side there. So that's just tucked along the riverbank of the Charles in Newton, Massachusetts, right behind the Daily Skating Rink. And it gives you an idea so that people can see, okay, this may be something that is reasonable. It's not going to require at the outset, a tremendous outlay of capital. And there's been a lot of talk at the group level about how we can maybe mitigate some of those costs by support from the local technical school, or however you want to use student groups. Other people can speak more directly to that. But that's just to give you an example of what could be done and may fit in the footprint if you guys decide that this is something that is worth further investigation. Yeah, so there's the boat ramp at the Pines. You guys already know it pretty well. But as we said, the rowing program would benefit from some slight improvements to that docking area, which I would think would be taken as an improvement for all of the boater users. The rowers needs a little bit like a low-profile dock. I think they own their own dock there, Tim, that is kind of an extension of what's there, sectional. Yeah, so it's low profile, which again is it's helpful for people, rescue situations, anything like that. I would personally, because of my involvement with the U.S. Paralympic team, I've been a coach of the Paralympic team for the last 5 or 6 years. I'm a huge fan, and what I've seen with universal design, and when you bring things that are built-in, ready-made to cater to people with disabilities, everybody benefits. And I would love to see, if this does go forward, that the dock improvements that are part of this project would be ADA compliant to whatever extent possible, and then that really opens up the number of people that could use and benefit from the program. So Karen and I just kind of walked around the site a few weeks ago, and just in thinking of the dimensions of a small building that would serve as a shell house, there are some possibility, and we did nothing more than take a cursory walk around the site. You all have a much better awareness of what's there, what space might be available, but possibly that, or another one where there's a rowing shell there. That's an 8-person shell. It's about 62 feet long. Heavily used, that particular area is for parking, but that could be one site you might think about siting, a post and beam type structure, shell house, something along those lines that might not impede your parking issues too much. I thought it'd be worth just kind of giving you an example of what kind of programs exist along the Merrimack River and kind of in the area right now. So there are a decent mix of club teams which function where lots of schools come, like a YMCA swim team, which is going to serve a lot of individual students from multiple schools. So programs that run along that model are Greater Lawrence Rowing out of the Greater Lawrence Community Boating Program in Lawrence, Essex Rowing Club in Methuen's club program, multiple schools served. Westford Community Rowing is mainly Westford folks, but they take kids from other school districts. And Community Rowing Inc. in Boston, as I mentioned earlier, this is where I work. They serve kids from, I don't know, probably a dozen different schools in the greater Boston area. Then you also have some scholastic teams which serve a single school or district. Haverhill High School, Greater Lawrence Tech is looking to start a program at an old Phillips boathouse. Phillips Academy Prep School, and then St. John's Prep has been kind of bumping around at different spots along the river. I'm not sure exactly where they are right now, but that's a program that's been around for a few years and is going to continue to grow. And that doesn't even touch the number of club and scholastic teams that are in southern New Hampshire right now. So there's a great group of ready-made local competition, whether it be formal or informal. So those are just some types of programs out there that exist. I'm going to just ask if anyone has any questions about that, because I'm probably mainly the most knowledgeable rowing person on the committee, so if anyone has any questions about the rowing aspect or anything at all, you can ask at any time, but maybe now's a good time before Karen comes up and talks about different funding options that we've considered. Does anyone have any questions?
See any questions?
Yeah.
Just to shoot.
I'd love to talk.
Microphone's not on.
Yeah. So I don't think Pentucket has a crew, do they?
I don't think so yet, although
I
some
mean,
of
it's
the...
been a long time since I've been to Pentucket, but I'm assuming they don't have a
Yeah,
crew.
I believe some students row at either Greater Lawrence or Essex, I'm not sure.
We have a few students who roll down there.
Yes.
And that would be one of my questions, is if, we were able to come to a spot where we could build that, would Pentucket kids be allowed to join that crew out of Haverhill if they wanted to explore doing something like that?
Yeah.
The thought is we would develop what
Can
we
you
call.
go-
I wonder if we could,
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
If
again,
you could
I'm
just
Tom
let us-
O'Brien, the athletic
oh, thanks.
director for Haverhill High School. First, thank you for your hospitality and letting us row out of here. It's been our best home yet. We've struggled around the river, but this has been the best yet. The thought would be we develop what we kind of call a cooperative agreement with Pentucket. So their students would all be eligible to compete with the Haverhill team. Actually be a Haverhill Pentucket team. We actually have a similar arrangement with our girls hockey program that's worked out well for the past 5 or 6 years, where we kind of have a joint team. So yes, Pentucket kids would be eligible.
Good. That's it.
Bill, do you have any questions?
No, I know Lowell has a big rowing team, I've seen. I know I've been by there, and my mother was out there in a nursing home, I used to go by there on Sunday, they had
Yeah.
a big rowing, they use that river a lot over in Lowell, so I'm familiar with what you're talking about. In not getting into the cost or anything, does any of these teams generate money, like, do they
Yeah, sure.
cost them to join, and is it all free?
I don't think any of them function as free, but some would pay the standard high school athletic fee. Tim, they pay $100 at Haverhill High. The club model, it really kind of depends on how you want to grow the program, because when you have a club model, it's typically run by a local like a nonprofit entity that would charge membership fees to help offset costs.
Yep.
Generally speaking, those costs can be anywhere from $100 to, you have some high-end clubs that have charged as much as $1,000 a season. But for the most part, the club structure helps generate some fees that can make the program sustainable, and you can replenish equipment and make repairs. So ideally, you would charge what you would consider sort of reasonable fees for that type of service in the area, then that would go into the club. It's sometimes hard for schools to raise money for one sport over the other.
Right.
And so it is a vehicle that you can do that, but we don't have a pricing structure yet. We're hoping to talk about funding next.
How
I guess.
about sponsorships? Like someone would sponsor one of those teams or what have you, and let's say they put money toward one team for sponsorship, and then that money would go in to offset it.
Yeah, sure. Any model is on the table. I'm a big fan to make sure that if there are 2 different user groups, or maybe even possibly 3, that everything feels equitable. In a tight space, you'd want to make sure the sponsorship could be spread across the full user group. But absolutely,
Right.
it's great. And some generate funds through their events, and that is another thing that is,
Well, that's where I was heading, is
Yeah.
later on tonight, I'm gonna be talking about, I've been working on trying to get banners and signage down there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get sponsors, so I'm thinking if we can maybe, I know some of those, like their boats or
Yeah,
some of the equipment
yeah,
they use,
yeah.
those people sponsor the signs and what have you, and that helps put money in, especially when they have an event.
sure, the
They
events.
put their stuff up and they get sponsorships that way.
Yeah, yeah, if you've, in Lowell, that
Yep,
regatta,
that's where
they
I've
have,
seen it
they have
happen.
2 major ones a year, one spring, one fall,
Yep.
and they generate a net profit for the club,
Right.
several $1,000s
And
when
I've
it's
heard they
in a good
also
year.
they also leave money back toward Lowell Recreation or whatever, there's
Yeah.
money left over.
Yes.
I know I've seen that happen, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
If I could just speak to the behavioral finance part. We invested a lot in this program when we started it up, which is a good part, and that's one of the big obstacles in starting a crew program. It's so expensive. I want to say we invested anywhere from $60,000 to $70,000 in purchasing boats, oars, all the equipment that had to do it. So we have that in place now. That's the biggest chunk. As far as on an annual basis, that's they're treated just like any one of our other teams, you know, so we budget for it, whatever it costs to run that program on an annual basis. She mentioned our students do pay a user fee, but it's the same user fee they pay for football, for any other sport. So that's what goes to kind of fund this program. And yeah, we have had a couple donation interest to name boats, and that had our crew parents kind of get together and start a booster club. They just got approved as a 501c3 organization, and they run fundraisers to help kind of fund the program.
That's good for now.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more on the funding cost, but could you go back to the picture on, at the college on the building itself? Right there, oh, nope, I think two, next one, right there. See the roof on it, that doesn't look like shingles on that roof, that looks to me like rolled roofing, which, I'm not sure that rolled roofing would be, is it?
Well, does it, we'll get, I think we can get into construction later, but that's,
Well-
we're just getting an idea, just giving us an idea of the basic dimensions of the building, right?
Yeah, and that
More
building
so
went up
than-
in 1988, and it was intended by the DCR to be a temporary structure
Okay.
for seasonal use. And so the refurbishment went probably just up to the extent of the roof. I'm not recommending that that's the building we use, only the structure, but, you know, that program started that small and has grown. We've got about 3,000 members at another site down there, so we just.
You notice things like that. It's, is there any thought to a community learn to row program? I know several years ago, the city of Haverhill, I think it was through their recreation, had a learn to, at Plug Pond, Lake Saltonstall, whatever you want to call it, a learn to sail program. And was there any, I think they charged, was there any thought to doing the same thing? Same type of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, my whole model, that would be what I would advocate, but every town's got to decide for themselves, like, how they really want to have that. But if you have a resource like a rowing program, and you have a shell house that can house it, and you have a beautiful recreation area, let's let all the community users benefit on some level. So not only learn to row, but returning memberships where even adults go out and compete. The Masters rowing scene is huge. There's some 30 or so people, sort of adults rowing out of Casimir Marina, would love to be part of something like this. So you can take the off-season, when the off-peak season from the high school kids, and fill it with, you know, younger kids or veterans or adults, so that everyone can kind of benefit. I mean, that's a great model. It requires a little bit more thought about your cost and your revenue structures, but it's definitely possible, and that's why I show you both of those models, so.
No, I'm all set.
I perked up a little bit when you mentioned Tempe, because I'm a Sun Devil. It's there, and they're probably rowing in that canal that they flooded.
Tempe Town Lake?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So they store their boats under the overpass, probably so they don't melt in the summertime. But I didn't see any locks. Are they chained up to a fence, or, I mean, you can't really walk down the street without attracting attention to yourself, but how, are they
That's a great-
secured, other than the ones
It's a great
inside?
question. They are not prone to vandalism or theft because they're pretty awkward to carry.
Right.
But there are, Boston Latin School and Brookline High operate right now on the Charles River. They must have 35 boats between the two programs. They're on racks that are unlocked along the Charles River, right near the Northeastern Boathouse, and they're not really touched. Tempe does have chain link fence around it, but that's it. You could jump over that fence pretty easily. So it's a puzzle to me why they are not more susceptible to it, but the truth of the matter is, those programs have been, a lot of programs will function that way without it. I don't recommend it. I think you're better off having it a little bit buttoned up.
Well, the ones inside obviously are more secure, you
Yeah.
can shut the door, but the
Yeah.
ones on the outside, it seemed like they're just kind of sitting there.
Yeah.
And would be easily vandalized,
Yeah.
or I don't think you can walk down Main Street with that over your head with a couple of your buddies and not
Yeah.
attract some attention to yourself.
Agreed. I mean, security concerns would be something that you would want to look at, not only for the value of the boat, but for just the kind of activity that you
Right.
might want or not want discouraged down there. And I think more secure would be better than what we show here, but I only show by way of example
Okay.
what can be done.
I have a couple, if you don't mind. Does the current boating activity on the river, especially with some of the bigger boats, present any kind of risk to the students? I know you've been rowing up and down for a while, but is there been any accidents with other boats, or, is there a potential risk that you see with the number of boats, the activity,
Sure.
especially right across from where you're launching them? There's a big marina.
Sure. I mean, boating in general is a risky activity. We all know this. What we want to do is take some calculated risks, and typically the rowing takes place outside of peak boating times, early morning, later afternoon. It's definitely a risk. There are days on the Charles where we just decide there's too many power boats, we don't row. So it's a risk. I think it's still a calculated risk that you can do safely and effectively with proper training of your coaches and establishing some traffic patterns and so that the different user groups are aware of how the boats function. So will be times that would be a conflict, but we try and avoid those times. They're not completely avoidable 100%, and you just need well-trained coaches with a safety plan in place, and that really understand the nature of the river and the times that are the most appropriate for rowing and the times that are most appropriate to say no rowing because it's peak boating hours.
So on a situation-by-situation, day-by-day, that would be evaluated if it was deemed that the boating activity that particular day was too excessive, you would call off a practice or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a coach that goes along in a motorboat alongside that is fully equipped with everything else any boater would have, the whistle, extra flotation. It's really having a coach with a good judgment, but also it's really choppy water caused by either wakes or wind that is the most detrimental, and that is a coach's judgment, and there's a whole training regimen about how to make those decisions. But rough water is probably the most detrimental thing, and whether it's rough water from other boaters or not. But collisions with other boats, probably more likely that the new rowers clash with one another rather than a power boat. I mean, that's generally what I've seen. Not very often that a power boat hits a rowing shell.
Good. Now, do college offer scholarships for rowing?
They do.
They do?
Yeah. At one point, about 3 years ago, there was so many women's scholarship opportunities at the collegiate level that for every young woman rowing in this country, there was a college spot for them. Not necessarily not a scholarship spot, but there was a spot for them to row in college. Those are great odds. Women's rowing have more scholarships than men's rowing. There are more universities offering women's scholarships than men, but both opportunities do exist.
So that would increase the opportunities for Pentucket High students potentially to get scholarships
Yeah.
and make a lot of
Yeah,
parents smile.
sure. There are a number of kids from Greater Lawrence that are rowing in college, getting recruited in college. Schools like Notre Dame, UMass, BC, really strong academic institutions that have rowing programs.
Great. This last question is probably more directed at Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Thornton. Would the fee currently charged by Haverhill High to the students, the user fee, be the same for Pentucket High students?
I would anticipate a similar arrangement, like I said, that we have with our girls' hockey program, and Dan can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, our policy is to charge a $100 user fee. We leave it up to Pentucket to decide how to cover their share of the cost. So what we do is basically come up with all of our expenses at the end of the year, transportation, the coaching stipend, equipment, everything, and then we figure out a cost per student athlete cost, and then if, say we determine that was $100 a student, Pentucket had 10 students, we would invoice them for $1,000 at the end of the year. How they come up with that, whether they charge their students, whether the school district covers it, we leave it up to Pentucket. We have similar arrangements in other sports.
Okay, thank you.
So I've been sent back up to bat cleanup here and really close with funding opportunities and costs associated with creating this kind of program. So one of the folks in our community rowing group that meets on a regular basis is Melissa Cryan. She works at the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs at the state level, And she's the one who single-handedly decides who's eligible for park grants, and I looked up what park stood for. It's Parkland Acquisition something communities. The R is,
Recreation?
thank you. Recreation and conservation, that's what it is. So essentially, it's money to allocate land and resources toward parkland, which is both active and passive, and conservation areas. And when this initially was brought to her attention, when it was solely a City of Haverhill project, she was very excited. And the city's plans hadn't quite come to fruition, so she said, stay on this, I'll help you build your application to make this, you know, maximize its eligibility, if I could say it that way. And we've brought her into the fold. Initially, when we were just talking about Haverhill, we broached the subject of what if we were to look in another municipality, how does that work? And quite frankly, the state welcomes and encourages regional participation in this kind of activity. So Groveland could be eligible for grant money to improve its current existing recreational area, and as Ellen suggested, make improvements to the existing amenities and resources that you have. And Haverhill could also benefit from park grants to support the Haverhill end of things, and it would not preclude either community from looking for this kind of funding for other projects. But they do really welcome and encourage the regional aspect of this. Another potential funding source, should the town wish to proceed, would be the use of your CPA funds. Groveland is lucky to have them. Haverhill does not have them. So that is one potential opportunity. What I did not include here, because it exists, but we're not sure of its ability to be tapped, is environmental bond bill money that former State Senator Ives was able to secure before she left. And so the idea would be, if we get our collective act together and find a site, we would then ask the Baker-Polito administration to help release those funds for this project. But we have some work to do before we do that, and that would be really to set up a budget, identify a site, look into what design and permitting and construction costs would be. So to talk about costs, they really break down into two categories. Capital would include site prep work, boathouse design and construction, but as Ellen mentioned, there are plenty of examples, both modest and less modest, more fancy, that we could look to. There are also associated program costs in looking to how to compensate coaches, how to secure the equipment and insurance, and deal with related safety equipment. So, next slide would be great, thank you. So, this is our last slide, and in a sense, you haven't missed much. We've really advanced the conversation to this point. And with the help of Denise and others, and Dan Thornton, who joined us at our last meeting, it was decided that we needed to stop here, take the temperature of the Board of Selectmen, and really try to find out if this is a conversation that we could continue to pursue in a joint manner with the City of Haverhill and the Town of Groveland. Mayor Fiorentini knows we're here tonight, and if he didn't have a city council, we have a city council meeting tonight, you have that night off. He knows that we're here, and this has his full support, and that's why Allison has joined us. So next steps after soliciting local support here would be to, as Ellen mentioned, create a nonprofit organizational structure that would help solidify and create the structure that would manage the programming aspects at such a facility. And then from there, we would proceed, or concurrently, we could proceed with looking at the dock redesign and reconfiguration to accommodate not only the high school programs, but a community program. And I can tell you that the state funds would require that accessibility improvements be made. So that would be a benefit to this project for sure. And then we would get into the design and permitting of a structure. So I will stop there. We're all here to answer questions. And really, at this juncture, we're looking to gauge your interest and take your temperature to see if this is something we can continue to advance.
Okay. Certainly, what's
So,
done.
I'm definitely one that is 100% in favor, anything that can bring business, bring activity to Groveland, I'm 100% on board with you. And you have my support. And my suggestion would be, after listening to this conversation, would be to involve one of us, Board of Selectmen, if these guys are on go with it, one of us joins in with you guys, and we'll be the spokesman for you, with you, and the school, the high school and the Pawtucket High School, and hopefully we can put something together.
That would be wonderful.
And I would love to step up to the plate for it. I am gonna be down there doing some signage and some stuff down there, so if they were willing to do it, I would love to do it. I think I have the energy to do it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Selectman Watson?
Yeah, I support it. Anything to get the younger kids out in the field, away from their computer, It's a plus. I'm all set.
Well, got to give credit to Bill Gates, too. He's a lot, stood behind the computer, helped us out. Selectman Wu?
Yeah, I'm on board with it. I think it's a good idea. I'd like to see some of the proposals and work out some of the finer details, but I'm on board with the idea of it.
I just have a couple of questions, mostly directed toward AD, Mr. Thornton. Is there interest in the student body for this?
Yeah, there's definitely some interest. We probably have had between 6 and 10 student athletes who have been rowing at the Essex Rowing Club. We have some ergs at the high school that they use just for working out purposes. But we do not have, we don't have a program. This has been something that we've been toying with over the years. Selfishly, I have a son who's in college who rows, so it's a great sport. I can't say enough about it. I would love to get it started at Pentucket if we could, because I think it'd be a great opportunity for a lot of the student athletes to get involved in it. It's a great sport.
So you're sure you can expand it on the 6 to 10 people you have, students you have now to really?
Yeah, well, it would be something to get about, it has to be approved by Pentucket. First of all, we'd have to get permission, to join
Yeah.
something like this.
Who would you need to get permission from?
I'd have to go through the district.
Through the district, through the
School
school committee?
Yeah.
I don't see a problem
Like any
there,
new
do you?
sport.
Yeah.
Would you see a problem there?
I mean, I don't see any problems, no.
I don't see any problems either.
I think a great way, once this gets going and you get all the approvals you need and all that ironed out, would be able to have like an experimental day for people who might want to get involved with it, at least see what it's about and give it a try and see if it's something that they want to explore and get more momentum over at Pentucket to get more students involved with it.
Yeah. Essex Rowing has been to Pentucket probably 3 times over the past maybe 4 years. And they've brought ergs over. We've actually taken over some of the gym space, gym classes for the middle school and the high school students. So we've had students and that was just in an effort to get them a taste of what it's like to row. And that's how they got their involvement through Essex Rowing, because I think it was really the only place they could go around here if they like the sport.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep jumping in here.
It's
but I
okay.
just can't say enough about how great this program's been for Haverhill. And you mentioned the 6 to 10 that might have an interest now. We had no idea how popular this program would be. And we had, first year, 40, 50 kids right off the bat with an interest. And Ellen touched on it. You're appealing to kind of that non-athlete that is not playing any other sport. We have that. We have people doing it as a second sport. But we have a lot of students that jumping on this opportunity that never played a sport in their life. So I don't think you know until you really start it, but I got to think it'd be similar to Haverhill, where they'd kind of come out of the woodwork. And she mentioned the college opportunities. We've had 3 females get full scholarships in the past 5 years coming out of Haverhill High School. Now, they didn't actually row for our rowing team because we weren't that advanced yet. They were in the private clubs, but those opportunities are absolutely there.
Awesome.
I think if you build it, they'll come. You know what I mean?
I guess if you're looking for a temperature, it seems to be about 98.6. I mean, this is, sounds like you have this board's blessing to continue your work, and I would, if I might, I'd make a motion that Selectman Dunn be a liaison or attach himself and give himself to whatever needs you could.
Yeah, I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the matter? Great. And all those in favor? Congratulations, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you.
It's, you don't want to use that spot in the parking where the boats pull in for your house. There are cars that will park there during baseball games, even though they're warned foul ball's going to take out your windshield. They just like this view. I don't know. But that might be a problem, too, with boats coming in and out, some of the bigger rigs. And be warned, we put in speed bumps, so don't fly down that parking lot anymore. You'll lose your boats. And security is, if we could, that would be a big thing. It's not so much theft, it's mischief. Being a young boy at one time and father of 3, I know, those are just compelling things that, some kids just can't stay away from them. I know I wouldn't be able
Our
to.
police have that's one of their turnaround points. Every shift goes down there, turns around, and checks on it, so it's pretty well, you know.
Oh, it's monitored very
Yeah,
well. Yeah, I'm not worried about them taking it, I'm worried about them climbing on it and
Yeah, yeah,
getting
yeah,
hurt
yeah.
and just creating kind of mischief that young kids can do sometimes.
Well, we
But,
would welcome Selectman Dunn to the group, and we thank you all for your support.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
I'll have
God bless you.
Denise get my email over to him, whatever.
Private number, everything.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. All righty. Doing some great things for the community. Moving right along, we have the Personnel Advisory Board to present their draft of the personnel policy, or the draft.
Good evening, everybody. Want to apologize, one of the board members, he had to leave, he had a overseas conference call he had to attend to, so he was hoping he could get up here and present, and now it's for me, so. My name is Stan Tazinski, joined the board about a year ago when we were formed, and I have some slides here. So we go to the next. So our charter was to deliver a personnel policy proposal to the Board of Selectmen. We wanted to update and reflect generally accepted practices, improve the ability to attract and retain qualified staff. What was not in scope was salary and job structure. We were not gonna look at any salary, job titles, or hierarchy, or anything like that. We did have an emphasis on vacation, sick time, bereavement time policy. We looked at the probationary period, buyback and payout, terminal leave, as well as grievance and progressive discipline. So we formed, as I said, back February 2018, almost a year ago. There were 5 of us, Jim Snow, Liz Zimmerman, who could not commit to the time, so they had dropped out of the race, so to speak, mid-year, and continued on. Lynn Stanton, who works for the town, myself, and Mike Bosher. Mike, who I said he just had to leave a little while ago. So the process, we met with Denise, finance director here at the town. We reviewed several personnel policies from similar Massachusetts municipalities. We targeted towns that were within the range of population of Groveland. As little as 5,000 people with as much as 10,000. We capped it at 10,000 people. We didn't want to look at cities. We didn't want to look at really big towns. So we wanted to keep it where towns that were maybe smaller like Groveland, and then where they've grown up to 8,000 or 9,000, what are the challenges they faced, and how did they present their personnel policies. So our research conducted up, if you could just back up a little bit more, sorry. So there were 15 other towns that we targeted out of that range that we were looking at. There were 12 personnel policies reviewed. Now on the next slide, you can see it's a bit of an eye chart, but this is how we did our comparison. So you can see the top row, we have the town listed, where you can see Groveland right in the first column, Adams, Bolton, Byfield, Clinton. And what we did throughout the rows, you can see on that, you can kind of see some of it there, but basically on the left-hand side, and all this information is available if you want, is the area that we targeted. And then through the rows, we noted down the points that we wanted to make note of, right? What was noticeable? What was, a lot of these towns, I hate to say plagiarize or copy, but they're very similar, right, across the different towns. But where we saw differences, we made notes, and those were the things that we wanted to highlight to sort of wean it down to where was gonna be the target, right? The next slide is another, again, comparison, more notes. You can see Hamilton, we took a lot of notes from Hamilton, Westport. We took some, you can see from Adams, Bolton, different, what people got for sick time through the course of time, their tenure, how long they were there. So here's a highlight of some of the key areas changed. The next few slides talk about the keys. So this one is probation. So probation period for new hires. At 180 days, ours is longer than any other town reviewed. Combined with the fiscal year calendar, the accrual, worst case scenario, 18 months with no vacation time because of the way, if you started after the beginning of a fiscal year, because you weren't employed for a year, you had to wait till you were employed for a full year before you could start accruing any time. So we looked at reducing that to 90 days with the option to extend and a more liberal vacation accrual. So let me just pause for a second. Noted on this PowerPoint, page 12, we went by the existing personnel policy. And our changes that we've done are noted on the pages that are on the PowerPoint doc. So if you go through that whole doc, you'll see specifically on page 12, so you don't have to go through every page and look, you can see where we made our changes. On the next slide is So this is probably the biggest change, is what we're calling, we've gone from sick time, and all municipalities, public, right, everybody has sick time, and they have vacation time, and they have, we started looking at what the private sector has, which is called PTO, or paid time off, where you accrue your time, you have your time, you use it for what you need. If you're sick, use it for sick. If you want vacation, you have to go to your kid's play, you gotta pick up mom and dad at the airport, whatever it is, you use that time. So, the other challenge we had was the accrual basis, right? People work different hours. Not everybody works the same schedule. And so what we did is we went down and we calculating it on a work week. So, you know, if you work 3 days a week at 27 hours, or you work 5 days a week at 32 hours, your calculation is gonna be based on what you work, not on full-time, part-time, you know, but there's a range too of how many years you work. So the minimum consumption is 2 hours that you can take. So if you have to take some time off, take a couple hours. You can't just take 15 minutes off, or 20 minutes, or what have you. We did add in a grandfather clause, so if you have 5 years seniority, you'll have the option to adopt the new policy. But we're gonna give you a time limit on that. We're proposing 60 days. So you can't decide 2 years down the line, hey, you know what, I think I like that. I wanna get into this PTO plan and not the old plan. This is all noted on page 20 with specifics in the doc. So again, here's more granular detail, right? Current versus proposed. So on the left-hand side is your seniority, if you've been here 0 to 5 years, 5 to 10, et cetera. Current plan, you get 10 vacation plus 15 sick, total of 25 days. Proposed, if you accrue at 5 work weeks per year, which is typically 25 days, you accrue at 2 1/12 days per month, or equivalent hours. Again, running down through current and proposed, we wanted to give a side-by-side so you could see what you have versus what you would get. And we didn't want to take anything away, there's really no big drastic changes, but it makes it a lot more flexible going to a PTO model. On the next is, this is for the part-time people. So again, seniority's 0 to 5 on the left-hand side. Current 6 vacation plus 15 days, you get 21 days as a part-time employee. And again, the proposed is to accrue this monthly for an equivalent of 4 work weeks per year. And then it goes up 5 years or 6 to 20 years. We left the 5 and the 6 to 20, again, we did the 5 and the 6 to 20 because that's what you have currently, but then in the proposed, it's really 5 years and beyond is you get 5 work weeks per year, okay? Bereavement, so we adjusted and expanded this for the definition of family members. So anyone living in the household is included as bereavement. So if your cousin, your uncle, your aunt is living with you and they pass away and they lived with you in the household, you can take bereavement time and get paid bereavement time for that. Grievance, so there was originally a grievance procedure in the personnel guide, and I think it was struck out by Kopelman and Page. We went through, we reviewed that, we again analyzed the different towns, we took a grievance policy, modified it a little bit, added in. That first abbreviation, EE, stands for employee. So the highlight, they submit a written statement within 10 days of the occurrence, which gave rise to the grievance. There has to be a response within 5 working days from the town to respond to that. There can be extensions on this by written agreement, and all the details are on page 15 of the guide. Q&A. Anybody have any questions?
First of all, I'd like to thank you and the rest of the committee members for stepping up to the plate and really taking this challenge on. It's been something that's been long overdue, and I really want to thank you and the rest of the committee members, like I said, for taking on this task and doing such a really dazzling job.
Thank you.
One of the questions I have, I guess, is for a full-time employee, the first 5 years, 0 to 5, they're eligible for 25 days PTO. And I like going to that PTO method. It just makes everything simpler. You lump it into one bucket. You take it out of the bucket, and you don't have to, go different routes. But a part-time employee would be eligible for just 4 less days? It sounds almost, I'd rather be a part-time employee, right? I
Well,
mean,
you get
am I
part-time
wrong?
pay, too.
I agree with what you're saying. If you, Denise, can you go to the part-time? So we looked at current versus proposed, right? And current, you get 24 days as a 5-year employee. You get 9 vacation and 15 sick days. And the proposed is you accrue up to 5 work weeks per year. But it's what you work. So again, it's the percentage of what you work. So if you're working 22 days a week, or, sorry, 22 hours a week, you could argue that's, almost 3 days a week, right? Then it again, the calculation comes out, the specific calculation is in the document. I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. But we tried to make it the equivalent to what the people have now. We didn't want to take away from what they have now.
No, and I agree that, I don't think that was really the goal. The mission was, as you stated earlier, it's to be more competitive in attracting top-level help and retaining highly skilled people, as opposed to being behind the curve and with lousy benefits and an outdated personnel model where they, get the experience here and then they quickly fly off to somewhere else where the grass is greener.
From a high level, it does look like that, but when you look at the granular details of where it is, it does break it down a lot better in the document.
Okay, and then I'm going to apologize because I didn't thoroughly do all my homework. I didn't read through the entire document, so I don't have as many questions as I probably should have. So I apologize to you and to all our listeners for that, that I am not as prepared as I typically am. So with that, I will pass on the questions and answers to, we'll start with Selectman Watson, if you'd like.
Did you, after you come up with it, did you run it by the present town employees for their input?
They were invited. We did have a couple employees come during some of the meetings, and we took their feedback. And in fact, our most recent meeting, where we had an employee, she brought up a lot of good points, and it actually changed some of our accrual and made us go to this accrual by week, or by work week, or days worked, as opposed to a specific calculation of you would earn, 2.7 hours, per week or per month, or I forget the exact calculation, but I could show you that data if you'd like to see what are the differences, yeah.
No, but how about taking this document and giving it to all the town employees, full-time, part-time, those are gonna abide by it, and see if there's any questions, comments from them after they've seen, even though, I know they were invited to the meeting, but maybe for some reason they couldn't, but how about passing it on to them and getting some of the employees' comments?
We could do that. I think what we wanted to do was present it to the board first, to find out how acceptable it would be at the higher level. And if the board felt that it was something that could be shared with the employees for their review, then that would be up to them. I didn't feel that that was our responsibility to share it with the employees.
Please.
Hi, I'm Lynn Stanton, and I do work here for the town of Groveland. My participation on the board was as an employee. So to sort of address what Ed Watson had to say, my effort was to sort of make sure, as a current employee who abides by and work under the current personnel law, that what we were proposing, what was going to go forward, would be something that would be palatable to all of us. My primary interest initially to participate on the board, and it was one of those cases where who would like to be on the board, and everybody steps back, and then tag, you're it. My primary concern was to make sure that those folks who've been here for many years didn't lose certain benefits that are currently available to us, one of which was the sick time buyback. So that was something we wanted to make sure was grandfathered for those who wanted to continue under the current policy. Ditto accrued vacation time and so on. A real big point was to make sure that those who'd been here for years and years didn't lose what they had worked hard to attain.
And I think that was the goal, to make sure no one currently was negatively impacted by
Correct.
any changes that
Correct.
were going to be proposed.
And then something that we'd like to see perhaps going forward as employees, not so much Stan and Mike, was what what will be your, as a Board of Selectmen, because you were the ones that broached this topic, sought this effort. What will be your approach going forward? What will you conclude? What sorts of discussions will you have? And will that be disseminated to all the employees together as a group, so that going forward, a new personnel manual, should it be accepted, would be something that would be shared with everyone in one fell swoop, not something that's passed by you without any opportunity for things to be explained or disseminated in sort of a universal fashion to all employees. And by all employees, I mean some of what we've done so far, the majority of it, was for non-contractual, non-union employees. While some things are applicable to all, folks with a contract or who are part of a union have different parameters. So that was part of it. Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions?
No, but I'll just echo basically what Lynn had just said. I'll echo my former statement. If she was the employee's representative, which she was, but yet you invited the employees to the meeting, so I just think that even though she was, I'd just like to see the employees at some point weigh in on this and what some of their feelings or comments are about it.
No, that's
Because they're the ones that some of those are ones that we've been losing to other communities because of different benefits that the others have given. So I don't think it's wrong in not getting their opinion.
No, I agree with you. It's not wrong. I think we took this as a legal document where it had been marked up by a particular law firm, and passing this out without it being approved and signed off on would be out of our realm of responsibility. So that was my personal approach to it. I didn't think that it should be, distributed like that. But I understand your thought and concern about having other people's opinions of it. But I felt it should be reviewed by the board at first. So.
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
Selectman Dunn?
I review this, not top to bottom, but I think you haven't taken anything away. I think it's been done very thoughtful. And I agree what Ed's saying, but I think at this point in time in the conversation might be premature to meet with employees. I think when we talk about it, we have a chance to hash it out and have that conversation. We should then bring the employees into the conversation. So I think at this point in time, it's premature, but there's nothing that I saw in here that's gonna make anyone mad. No one's gonna leave. I think what you said is you dotted the i's, crossed the t's, and you made it what we needed to do. And I think you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Would, please stay
I'll
up.
defer.
Yeah.
I had another quick remark, which was, there's an opportunity in the document for current employees to opt in or out, as Stan said, within a 60-day period. So it's not an iron corset, if you will. There's an opportunity to opt in or opt out. And I think, as Denise had said in our sort of more informal conversations, there's a real effort to try to attract and maintain and hold new employees. And I think this is a way, given the flexibility offered, to do just that.
Selectman Wood?
Sure. I did read through the documents. I think, like Bill and Ed said, I think you did a great job on it. It's something that's long overdue. And from my point of view, I don't see anything that would be detrimental to existing employees or bringing on new employees, but I don't know, right? It doesn't affect me either way. So I would like to get eventually some feedback from the employees, both the pros and the cons and what they'd like to see adjusted or things that we might not be thinking of, and then move forward with that. But I think it's a good starting point, definitely, like I said, needed to be done, as opposed to losing and not being able to attract new talent to the town, that we're a growing town, so we need to bring more people in and keep them here longer, and this is one of the things that's going to help. But I think having the extended conversations on it is going to be helpful.
One more comment.
Sure.
Anyone living in the employee's household it's, I know we're going to be a little liberal, but, so if my cousin Vinny moved in yesterday, he dies tomorrow, I get time off?
Well, again, the specifics are in the document, so I would defer to the document. This was the high level. So we did put in specific, there are some specific relatives there that go part of it.
So it's beyond what would typically be found in private industry, where mother, father, spouse, child, grandparent, grandchild.
Right, it's usually direct. I mean, if your domestic partner passes away, then you would have bereavement for that. I believe
Typically covered,
that's-
yeah.
That's part of the criteria. Again, I'm sorry I don't have the page in front of me, but that page does list out specifics, and it gets very granular.
So we basically, we expanded that portion, we didn't contract it at all.
Correct, exactly.
So it's a benefit, not a,
Exactly. It's growing.
It's a greater
more
benefit.
Forward, future thinking, right? So,
okay, great.
all right.
Thank you again, appreciate it.
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate your
Thank
time.
Great movie.
Thank you.
Thank the
My
board.
cousin Vinny. Well done.
So can I just ask how the board wants to proceed? Do you want me to add this on an upcoming agenda? Do you want to bring back questions? How would you like to handle proceeding with this document?
I think everyone, including me, should read it page to page, make explicit notes, and then be prepared to come back here at another meeting and debate it openly, so that there are no hidden agendas with anyone. There is no double dealing, or backdoor, or closet, deals being made. Everything, all cards on the table, and they're all face up. I think that's the way it should be dealt with for total transparency. Disagree. So let's make that for 2 meetings from tonight. This should give everyone ample time to review the documents thoroughly.
So February 18th? Nope, sorry, the
I can't even see the calendar, so you're asking me.
19th, February 19th, Monday's the holiday?
Yeah,
So you get an extra
or
day.
11, 18th.
Oh, no.
18th,
Is it the 18th?
yeah, because the 4th is the Monday.
No, 18th is the holiday, the 19th is, it's a Tuesday meeting, Monday's
Oh, it's a
President's
Tuesday
Day.
meeting.
Yep, so February 19th.
Aren't we moving the day after the Super Bowl meeting? I mean, that's a holiday, right?
It's
every
It's up to the-
Patriots.
it's up to the
It's every
chairman,
year
I
for the
guess.
Patriots,
I think it
right?
should be in New England anyways. I don't know about how they feel in New Orleans, but
All right, so I'll put it on the 2/19 meeting.
that gives everybody plenty of time, I would hope. So now we have, next up, Kentucky Regional School District requests for a MOU, which stands for...
Memorandum of Understanding.
Thank you. With regard to school building project permit and inspection fees. So, Dr. Barthol, as far as I understand, this is just a really kind of a formal thing where you're looking to waive fees, which the town would typically charge for any construction-related permits or fees that would be in relation to the new project.
That's correct.
And before, I just want to say, so we don't charge any Town of Groveland project fees. So if it's a municipal building, water, sewer, light department, we don't charge permitting fees as it stands.
Okay.
So I have spoken to the building inspector about the request. He has no problem with it. We, as I said, the letter sort of speaks for itself on the offer to cover outside inspectors or cover the actual true costs, and he's fine with that. So I told him we'll defer to the board.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're dotting our i's, crossing our t's, and I know we haven't even nailed down who would actually be doing the inspection, which towns, how that would be divided up. But we just want to make sure for the taxpayers of the 3 towns that any fees that go above and beyond that the school district would cover, and it wouldn't be, we waive the fees that are in the building fee schedule.
I don't see any
I
issues
mean, I read
with
the
that.
papers, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Is it
certainly-
that
certainly
simple?
I
makes
don't think
sense.
it was a big
Is it that
ask, it was just
simple?
making sure.
It's
Right?
it's pretty much that simple, cut and
Yeah.
dry, right?
I mean, I'm kind of a, layman's, but I read the paper and I'm like, all right, that seems okay.
Yeah,
I actually feel kind of bad now, because if I really had thought about it, we should have put you at the top of the agenda and got you out of here in 10,
that's okay.
in 5 minutes.
I enjoy my
nothing to
time
do,
here, it's no
so,
problem at all.
He was coming anyways. Don't let him fool you. He was going to be here.
That's good.
Double duty.
Then I make a motion that we accept the MOU with regards to school building project permits and inspection fees to make it all formal and
Second.
legal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the matter? All those in favor?
Yep.
Terrific.
Thank you very much.
Easy.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
See you Thursday.
Easy peasy. I wish everything in life was this easy.
Yes, and just a reminder, Thursday, 6 o'clock, that meeting is now moved to Sweetser in anticipation of higher than expected attendance. We didn't want to have to move it around, but we moved it to Sweetser. We're hearing that there might be a couple hundred people showing up, which is great.
That's a good thing, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So we can get the facts out about the whole building project, and we'll also discuss the regional agreement. So for those of you on TV, it's 6 o'clock this Thursday at Sweetser School.
You'll be supplying pizza and drinks?
We will
I mean,
not
that's-
be using tax money to provide TV.
I didn't say tax money. I
Oh,
just said
my
you
own
supp-
personal. Right.
He said you.
I mean, it is dinner time.
It is Merrimack House Pizza. It's a good place to get some pizza.
We will order out and have it delivered.
Yeah, so I just want to comment on it. So it will not be run live on our channel, but it will be rebroadcast as soon as we get a copy of the meeting.
If
So,
we had streaming service, could it be live?
not at Sweetser, not at the schools. We don't have that capability. But,
unfortunate.
but it will be recorded and run on all three towns, public access, community access.
Can we make that a priority?
Yeah, so it's actually Chris that will be there, because he covers both Groveland and Merrimack. He will be there doing the filming, and he knows to get it up as soon as possible.
Yeah, and we apologize to the cable group for this inconvenience. I know it's not easy, but we really appreciate it.
Hey, if you serve refreshments, people show up.
That's true.
See?
Very true.
Pizza, Coke,
A little too high, a little too much money.
couple
Thank you,
hundred
gentlemen.
pizzas.
Appreciate
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming. Yes, sooner than possible if you could do it.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the Cable TV Advisory Board to provide an update on the cable contract.
So Tracy asked for this at the last meeting to be on the agenda tonight.
And to the best of our knowledge, they have not had a meeting since our last meeting. Is that correct?
I don't believe so.
That's correct.
Are there any plans to have a meeting?
Yes.
Do we know that, when that's anticipated?
No. It was mentioned to me, it was coming soon, so I would think within the next couple of weeks.
I can't stress the urgency that it seems like they were behind the eight ball. This contract expires in 10 months, I believe.
Yeah, we should be able to catch up pretty quick. Everything's been written up, the timeline, and so we're pretty much on schedule with the timeline that's been established, so it should be okay.
In talking with the Haverhill Cable Committee on trying to get some other options in town for cable television, they spent years working on their contract. And even an email, I talked to him yesterday about my update with Senator Tarr last week. He thinks that we're behind, way behind, on negotiating that contract. It's pretty in-depth, there's some milestones that need to be met. There's a lot of detail to go through, and now we're down to 9 months, 10 months? So a couple of weeks isn't gonna cut it. I mean, this should be done yesterday.
Do you know of the specific milestones that Abel's saying that we may have missed?
Specifics, no. I can talk to Bill over there and see what he thinks, but I know that he spent a couple of years going through their contract and leading up to the negotiations for renewing that with Comcast, and it's not an easy thing just to do in a night, or even a couple nights. This is something that should have been ongoing for at least a year. So
No, I know.
I've been looking at it, for 2, 3, 4 months as part of this other Verizon type thing, but, I mean, it's something that needs to be done. It needs to be done ASAP and not in a couple of weeks, another month, another 3 months.
Yeah.
One of the new members of the board he's a pretty good background. He's negotiated these before, he's worked on them. And he's the one that has set up our time frame. And the time frame that he has set up, he thinks it could be met without any problem. And we'll just move forward with it. And he has it set up for the meetings, the notifying the people with just help me, what was the word,
The complaints,
no, the public,
feedback,
excuse me?
feedback?
Yeah, along with the, yeah, so everything should be all set. And you know, you talk about negotiating the contract, you look at the new contract as opposed to the old contract the old contract we had, there isn't a heck of a lot of a difference. But, and there's some things that we have no control over, but it's in the works.
I do notice, though, from reading over the other contract, that they started 2.5 years before the expiration. They reached out in November of, January 2007 for a contract that didn't expire till 2009.
I think that was the same thing for this upcoming contract.
So what is the timeline? Could you expound on that?
I cannot, I don't have it with me.
Is this something that can be provided to us once you get home or once you get your notes? So that we have a good idea of where we're going and...
I think that that was the purpose of the chairman to appear before the meeting tonight, was to, he had the timeline, and that he could address that. But I think maybe at the next meeting, he can come in and in 2 weeks and present that. That should work fine.
I would ask that that be presented as soon as the chairman can get it over to you, not wait 2 more weeks. But that's me.
I can certainly reach out to him.
Has he gotten back to us, the chairman of that board, about the money that was returned to us by the state? And
No.
so we have money that was returned to us by the state, but we don't know if it actually left before it was returned, where it came from, how it got there.
Yes, so it's actually has not been returned. It's listed as unclaimed funds for the town of Groveland Cable Access, and he was supposed to be researching if it truly belongs to the town of Groveland, what the situation was. He has not gotten back to me.
Seems somebody spent a long time grandstanding and filibustering and chastising this board here, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a lot done on the other side, so we'll...
What kind of money are we talking? Is it a lot of money?
15,000, I think.
That's a few
That the
bucks.
state, I think it was 15. So I got a letter from the state treasurer's office that it's unclaimed funds through a local bank. But in order to claim it, there's certain things we need to do. I had reached out to him, as it says cable advisory. It's actually in the name of a former cable advisory chairman. But it's listed as the Groveland Georgetown Cable Advisory. So before I claim it as Groveland, I don't even know if it really belongs to us. He was supposed to let me know if those are in fact Groveland's funds, or if it's Georgetown, or what the situation was.
Or 50/50.
Correct, I don't know.
Or Georgetown hooked on with us, right?
I-
So maybe all ours.
It could be all Georgetown's, I don't know. I don't know what the situation was back then.
Maybe you can write a letter tomorrow, excuse me for yawning. Maybe you can write a letter to the chairman of the Cable Advisory Committee and ask him in a formal letter through the chairman and ask him for them questions.
Yeah, I did. I gave him a formal request
Okay.
before.
Yeah.
But I'll follow up on that, and, so shall I put him on the February 4th agenda? Or do you want me to try and get the timeline first?
Let's get the timeline first, because if there's nothing to discuss, then we're not gonna waste this board's time again.
Okay.
They need to have a meeting and, you know, get to work before they can come in here and discuss updates.
Okay.
It's gotta be something to update.
All right, we'll follow up with him tomorrow.
The time is running out. So moving right along, we have the votes of the board, minutes from the December 10th, 2018 meeting.
Those look to be in order, I'll move for passage.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the matter? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor?
Abstain.
Old or unfinished business?
I wasn't here.
Older unfinished business?
Oh, I thought he was looking at me for the vote to the board. No.
Old or unfinished business?
No, I'll wait for selectmen reports.
Okay. So if you can pass out your way, I'll give one over here to Ed. So, as I said, I would go and get you the pricing for the Pines Field sponsor signs. The first vinyl banner column that you see, the 2x3, 4x4, 4x8, year one, the number is higher because they're gonna be paying for the sign that year, but the second year would be, that would be basically for their signage on the fence. So, that would be the price for the second year. The ALU panel vinyl board, it's a piece of 3/4 or 5 inch, it's like a PVC board, it's more permanent, where the other ones are a banner, like a vinyl banner. So that's the price structure. I ask if the board can give me the blessing to move forward, if they think it's okay, and I'll try to start working on selling. And I'll give the people options, they can go with the vinyl banner, or they can go with the board.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So Bill, in all of your examples, you have the sign costing $50. That's regardless of the size?
What's that again?
So in each one, year one is $50 higher than year two for every
Yep.
size. So
Mhm.
every size sign costs the same to make?
So half of the price on a 4x4,
Yeah.
half of 320 is what the sign cost.
So in year one, they're not paying for full advertising, right? If advertising is $270, they're not paying for the full $160 for the sign on top of that.
They
We're
are.
just charging, no, it's just $50 more? I'm just trying to figure out, because each one is just $50 higher in year one. So we're only charging $50 for the sign plus a year of advertising?
So let's just say the 2x3 sign in year one costs $60. That's what we're gonna have to pay the sign company, and it's gonna cost them $60 for that rental for that year.
Right, but then the same goes for the second year.
Yeah, they've already paid for their sign, they get to keep their sign.
I'm sorry, not the second year, the next size up.
This next
So the
size up.
4x4,
Yep, half of that price cost.
right, so if the sign is 160,
Yep,
but
But
the advertising for a year is 270,
The
so we
delta
only
between
charging
the two
them,
is only 50.
so it's only $50 higher.
160.
So is
Okay,
that,
it's-
was that your intention?
no,
Okay.
no, that's wrong. So the intention is that,
Half of the advertising cost.
yep, and the next year, so the year two,
Yep,
they'd only be paying 70, they've already paid for their sign,
yep.
okay?
So a 2x3 is $35 to make the sign.
A 2x3.
Half of the 70
A
should be-
2x3
No, you're saying.
is,
No,
no,
60.
it's
The sign's already made,
$60.
so that's already at the
Oh,
cost
it's half of the
year.
first year
Yeah,
number,
half of the
okay.
first year.
So it's $60 for the sign.
Yep, and then, yep, you got it.
Okay, so it should be 130 then in year one for that, 60 plus the $70 annual fee.
No,
Nope,
he's saying that, look, you get 120.
Yep,
Half of that is the cost of the sign at 60.
Yep.
Correct.
The first year is 60.
yep,
And and 60. And then the next year, they already paid for the sign, they use the same sign, just to keep it up is 70.
70.
But it should probably be 60.
well, that's why, so if a
Yeah.
full year of advertising is 70, then shouldn't it be 70 plus the sign in year one?
Which would make it 130.
No?
That-
No.
That's not how they usually do it.
Okay, I'm just trying to follow
Yeah.
because,
You're having the same argument that me and Teresa had.
I'm glad we're not alone.
it must be male versus female.
They're getting, it looks to me like they're getting a break on the,
The bigger signs.
no, they're getting no, because if you get your 4x8 sign, half of that cost, half of the 640 goes to pay for the sign. So they're
Yep.
getting a break on the
Yeah.
advertising their business for the first year.
Right.
And then the next year, they're at 590.
Right, so that's what it's supposed to
It's
be.
basic, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So the 4x8, $640 the first year, $320 is for the sign, and $320 is for their space wherever.
We charge them $590
Yeah,
for
right,
their space.
Right, but they've already got their sign.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess you're missing it. I'm seeing it. You charge me $320 for the sign.
Yep.
And you charge me $320 to put it up. the next year I don't have to pay for the sign, because I already
Oh,
bought
I
it.
know how you're doing it.
But you,
You think it only
you're
should be-
charging me $590 for the same sign, you charged me
Right,
$320
so
for
what
last
you're saying
year.
is you guys wanna do it, you guys wanna just do 320 the year two?
Oh, I don't care, or it's the other way around. Like, if it costs $80 to make the sign, whatever it is, then maybe that year should be the cost of the space on the fence, which
Plus
would
the cost of the
essentially be
sign.
$590, plus the cost of the sign in year one. But however you want to do it, I just want to make sure I understand what you're looking at. I don't care. It's not my
Well,
decision,
the-
so.
the-
So, in essence, if 4x4, let's go with the 4x4.
Yep.
It's $320 for year one, which means half
half
of the
of that's for
cost,
the sign,
$160 for the sign and $160 for the
right.
sponsorship. So year two would be $160 just for
The space.
the space,
But it
not
isn't, it's
$270.
$50 high is what most people do.
Right.
To try and make money to do your maintenance programs and what have you.
So 50 on that would be $210. Sit with Teresa, I think she's
Yeah.
on the right path.
Okay, all right, I'll go back with that at it again.
Yeah, or, yeah.
Or sit with
Well, we can
Denise.
do it here, it,
No, it's okay.
in year one, year one.
Yep.
Half those prices are what the sign's gonna cost us from the sign
It's
company, I
cost.
got the
Yep.
bids, okay? So, half of that would be 60, so 120. So then go in year two, what you guys are saying, it should be 60.
Or the other way around. Year one for the 2x3 should be 130, 60 for the sign, 70 for the space on the fence.
Yeah. And then
A little
next
more.
year two, you're just charging for the space on the fence.
Right, it depends what you determine is the space on the fence worth.
Yeah.
So I would start by that and then figure out, you know what the cost of the sign is. So in year one, do you want to charge them less for space on the fence? Or do you want to keep that consistent regardless of whether they need a sign or not?
They're
A
gonna-
new sign or not?
Right. Usually the signs last 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
So what I was trying to do is refurbish their signs, so they don't have to keep paying for it year after year.
Right.
That's all I was trying to do.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Okay.
if, I don't know if you have or not, but if you reach out to, like, folks like John Stock,
Mm-hmm.
who's heavy into Babe Ruth, Dan Stewart, who's heavy into the girls softball, they probably have a lot of people already lined up, that, you know, dying to put their name on stuff like this, just don't know who to talk to about it. Because I know they've reached out to me in the past.
I have mine down on one of the fields, it's 220. And it's a 4x4, you know
I
what
know
I mean?
you've got one down Washington as
Right,
well.
right.
Yeah. It's great, and there's lots of people like you lined up that would love to advertise at the
Yeah,
Pines.
oh, yeah, once,
And they
I
probably
think
know
Denise and I
them.
already had a
Yeah,
conversation with.
and so John Guilfoyle, who you may know is a resident in town, who
Yeah.
has his PR, he's actually offered to help us. His kids are big into the sports down at the Pines. He's offered to help us get the word out to publicize this once we're ready to go as well.
Great.
All right, so you want me to go back and change the numbers?
No, I just wanted to make sure I knew what we were talking about. So however you guys want to do it.
So what's the
I just
difference?
wanted to-
I don't have a calculator, I've lost all the calculator. What's the difference between 640 and 590?
It's all $50.
It's
Right.
all, yeah.
So year one to year two, it's $50
All right,
less in year
Let me go back
two.
and lower it a little then. I mean, you're not gonna lower the year two on the 70. So if you were to basically, half of 320,
Half of 320,
160.
it's buck and a half, buck. whatever,
160.
160.
160.
160.
Yeah.
And then the next year, see, it's really, you'll be busy making money down there to try and, whatever. So half of 640 is 320.
But you see what happens, look at this one. In year three,
Yep.
it paid
Carry the
320
one,
for the
Yep.
sign, it
bring
paid
over
320 for
pie.
the advertising, took me
Yep.
to 640.
Multiply it by
The
7.
next
Right.
year I pay 590, which is $270 more
Yep, I got you.
than
Move the
I
decimal
paid just for
point.
the space the year before.
Okay.
Then I have to ask myself, well, is it really worth another,
All right,
you know,
I got it.
270 on top of the,
I'll submit it to you,
they give me
Denise,
50 more
again,
bucks, I want a whole new
and
sign.
then you can give it to them.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll just change the year two prices again.
And then,
Alright.
so Bill, do you, Bill Dunn, sorry. Do you have an example of, because then we must have to give people a certain amount of space that they can write in, or do they give us like a logo card? How does
They
that
give-
work
they
when we
just-
make the
They have that
signs?
size 2x3.
Yep,
Give us whatever they want. I give it to the sign company, and they do they'll put it in that space.
But they can make anything, they can replicate logos, or is it all letters only?
Nope, whatever they want.
Okay.
Yep.
So we should make a form that has a box that they can pick which one they want to do when they
Right.
write whatever they
Yep,
want,
that's
or
what we'll have
attach
to
a
do. We'll have
business
to make up a
card,
thing
or,
They fill out, some sheets that they fill out, once we get this straightened out.
Yep.
Go back to the drawing board again. It's only been a year.
Will we accept from any and all advertisers, or will there be some kind of guidelines? So that we're not like, Bad News Bears, Chico's bails bonds on the back of the kids' shirts and stuff. I mean,
I think you all should put a policy in place regarding advertising on town property, and you decide what you want for advertising.
right. I mean, the last thing I want is the Grand Wizard of Ku Klux Klan saying, hey, I'll buy the whole fence.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, I was thinking local businesses, businesses type thing, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Hospitals, you know.
Maybe, Bill, you could look, I know you did some work with Georgetown, you could look and see if they have any specific guidelines or some of
Yeah.
the other places.
Yeah, and I can reach out to, if you need me to any of the
Okay.
towns. But I think the board should put a policy in place, so that it's just there, it's on our website with the form. When people want to participate, they know what the rules are.
Yeah, what
Obviously,
I
no
was gonna do-
profanity,
What I
no
was gonna do is, once we
illicit
got this,
pictures, things like that.
once we get this ironed out, what I was gonna do is turn around, then come up with some sheets that, if we had a 2x3 sheet, okay, they want them, they fill it out, give it to them, they give me back the stuff, I submit this piece of paper that you get, with you,
Yep.
wherever it goes,
Yep.
boom. And then I take a bunch of them over to the sign company, give them to her, she'll do them, and that will be it.
Yeah,
Can't you,
perfect.
can't you just put something subject to the approval of Board of Selectmen?
Then you want every advertisement to come before you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, no, but you could be like, look at this.
No, but it shouldn't be in anyone's individual discretion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you have a policy, it'll cover sort of the basics. If there's anything questionable, you could say, or subject to the board's approval, but I think as long as you cover the basics. I don't think anyone's going to want to advertise and put anything inappropriate, but I think a formal policy
Oh.
just solidifies it.
Yeah, and then, one of those little clauses at the end of all those legal disclaimers that give us the power to do anything we want at the end of the day.
See lawyer.
Okay, so I'll go back and work on that one more time. Under old business, I was talking with Tom Talbot at the well company for the Pines Well. And I also talked to Rich on the guy that had drilled the well. Spent quite a bit of time on both conversations with both of them. I actually got a bid submitted through Tom Talbot late this afternoon, which he emailed me, and I actually sent it over to Denise. You can pass those on. I think she said she had a copy of one.
Yeah, I have one.
I think pass it to Mike. So, I know what I'm gonna say is gonna be kind of maybe make your head spin, but I'm gonna try and do it better than I just did with the signs. But anyway, I'll try.
What's this number? No.
So, the sprinkler system over there, putting the well down inside that well with a pump in a shed with a tank that I've been talking about. One head will be 1.2 to 1.5 nozzles per head. Okay, there'll be 4 to 5 heads per zone. It will take 150 gallons per head in a 20-minute run zone. 750 gallons per run zone for 20-minute run zone. There'll be 6 zones at 32 heads. That well will have to produce 4,500 gallons in the 25 minutes. The well will produce 21,500 gallons of water per day in a 4-hour minimum. The well will bring 15 gallons per minute, and the well is 800 feet deep. The well pump that you have in front of you, the pump, that's the price from the well guy. The pump system with the, that pump system is gonna have a pressure, it's gonna be a gallon tank, there'll be a pressure on it to bring the pressure up to 75 PSI per minute. I mean, it's a lot, but whatever. It's gonna bring it up over 55 gallons per minute. Anyway, you got the quote in front of you for him. The sprinkler system's gonna cost about $24,300. The shed's $2,880. The electricity to hook it up is $2,500. And it's gonna cost $54,280 to do that, to finish that well that's been drilled over there, what have you. I was able to obtain the current proposal from the proposal that's been put through to go down and pull the water out of the river. Very vague, doesn't have any proposals backing it up, and I want to say it's about $188,000 to do that. I'm very confident, having the conversation I did with these guys, this will work. And I said to him, well, I got some kickback because people don't think that that well will do more than one field. I was told by the pump guy, I guarantee you can do at least 3 fields. It's gonna run 4 hours. You can do this in a 12-hour run time, you'll be fine. One field will run, that will go off, another field will go on, and another field. So he goes, I have no problem whatsoever putting this together, what we've quoted you, and using that well to finish it. So at this point in time, I know other people will be submitting their proposals. I would like to submit my proposal, and I would like to have the board finish this project. And we can go from there. I probably just made you guys.
Can you,
But she can't argue this point with me, Teresa, though. Go ahead.
can you go over that again?
Sure.
No, seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
'cause
All right, let me see if I can explain it in
well,
layman's
no,
terms.
because
All right.
you lost me on a couple
ready?
spots. Wait a second.
Okay, go ahead.
You lost me on a couple spots, and I want to make sure that I'm getting the numbers
Yep,
correct in my head along with what's on this piece of paper.
yep.
Okay,
You ready?
I'm ready.
One head, watch me, it's kinda gotta be one sprinkler head.
Yeah,
Will do one, you put a nozzle in it.
yep,
That nozzle will do 1.2 to 1, you can put a 1.2 or 1.5 nozzle in it.
Right.
That gives you gallons per minute out of that head,
right,
okay? So when you take that head, in 20 minutes, that one head is gonna produce 150 gallons of water, that one head.
Okay.
In 20 minutes. So if you had 6 of those on a zone, you're gonna be doing 706, or whatever it is, 750 gallons in that run time.
mm-hmm,
That's how much water it's gonna take to run that
zone,
zone.
okay,
Okay, when all of the proposed 6 zones run down there,
Yeah.
you're gonna use 4,500 gallons of water to do that field
In 20 minutes,
in 20 minutes per zone.
20 minutes per
so
zone.
in 3 hours,
You got it,
okay,
yep. And then that well is willing and can bring up 21,500 gallons of water that well has down in there. He said that well, the pump will produce.
over what time frame?
Well, I mean, that's what the well is capable of producing, because when they do their
Right,
stats
but is
on it-
that on a day, is that in a week, is that in 4 hours?
Well,
Because you're gonna
that's
need-
that's the amount of water down there you can use, so we're using 4,500 gallons.
Okay.
So take 4,500 gallons and divide that by 21,000, how many
That's
fields
6
can?
days, that's 6,
Well, this is 4 hours. This is a 4-hour runtime, 4,500 gallons.
okay, so over 6 days, that water would have to be turned over again to that 21,000 that's down there.
Right, but it's always coming in, you're pulling
Right.
out, it's coming
Okay,
back. You're
okay,
pulling
I got
out,
it.
It's coming back.
Got it.
But you also gotta remember, in that shed, there's a tank in there.
Right,
Which has some storage in it, which also that storage brings your pressure from, a good sprinkler system runs at 55 gallons PSI.
Right.
That's to put the pressure out of that head. He's gonna increase it to 75. And the argument a lot of people argued with me about down the Bagnell School was, that well brought up 14 gallons per minute. Okay? It was only putting out, I believe, it was shy. We put in 1.2 heads down there, we had to put 4 heads. It was a little bit shy on pressure, so what he wanted to do then, it was too late, let's put the pressure tank in. We didn't. So what we did is we did a gap zone. We had so many heads, a gap zone, so many heads, you know what I mean?
Yep.
This way here, we're not gonna have no gap zones because there's more fields down there. There was only 1 field there. We wanna try and do 3 fields down here.
right.
So, we're gonna go with this different system, it's a little more elaborate
Right.
system. But,
So you're replacing the water in the tank, and while you're using the water in the tank, you're replacing the water back into the tank.
basically, yeah, right.
Got it.
And the thing is, I called him back today, cause I got this late, like I said, and I got this quote from him, and it was 24,500. And I called him and I said, wow, are you sure about this price? He goes, why? I said, the Bagnell was like 23.8, I believe. He goes, Bill, it's winter time. If you guys can do this, and you can sign up, that's your price. So that's, and I made sure of it, I actually had asked Denise, if I send this over to you, I'm at home now, and what have you, so she printed out for you guys, but he said he's good with it. So, the only piece of it we're gonna have to do is the electricity, which I think is already down there, am I correct?
There is a transformer down there. We would have to have the electricity run from that to
Yep.
wherever the shed is gonna
Right,
go.
I thought there was something in here. he
Twen-
wrote.
20
You said
a 20-foot
2,500.
trench with water and electric lines to the shed.
Yep, so as long as it doesn't exceed that footage, if it exceeds it and it's farther away, he's gonna charge more.
Right.
Okay,
Change order.
okay. So that's that. You got it now?
I got that, and what's the total of the project down there now?
It's gonna cost,
Versus what the proposal will be for drawing it out of the river directly?
drawn out of the river is around 188,000,
Nice.
and this proposal's 54,280.
100, so what you're proposing is to go forward with the existing project down there, instead of doing about face and going somewhere else and trying to get it done.
Right,
Got it.
right, right,
Wow. Okay.
okay.
What's the difference between the 54,280 and the 24,500?
He said it was the irrigation system, the shed, and the electricity. Bill, you have the breakdowns of those.
What's
So-
that again?
The irrigation system, the shed, and the
Okay, so the irrigation
electricity.
system's 24,900, I went a little higher when I did my quote. The actual sprinkler system's 24,300. The shed was 2,880. And the electricity's 2,500.
And basically, it's less than 1/3. You found it?
Oh, and let me back up a step. I had a conversation with him. This gentleman, actually worked on the well that is there now, the existing well. What he did is he came back through the town hall complex, the fields, and wherever that system's watering, he changed the nozzle sizes down to a lower nozzle size, and then he put a brass well point on the well, I believe is what he told me. And he said, we had no problems whatsoever all last season. He said, it's a bunch of BS, is what he said, and he said it in a different word, because we're on the phone, but anyway. He said, there's plenty of water in that well. It's not the problem, it's the silt. And what
Right.
happens is the silt is clogging the well point. He said, we put in place, a screen system where you're not gonna have the problem. And he said the other problem was whoever worked on the well, on the sprinkler system end of it, put two bigger nozzles in there. So the system was constantly running out of water because they didn't size the right nozzles out in these lawns. Somehow they got resized or whatever, and that's one of the problems you were having. So it was eating up more water quicker than it could come in. It was pulling out onto the lawns quicker than it could come back in.
So what's your level of confidence that this is going to be fixing the issue down there?
If you wanna lay me down on a bed of nails after having a talk with these two guys, lay me down on a bed of nails.
No, I'm not gonna send you
No.
upstream. I just wanna know from someone
No.
who does this,
No,
what's your
I'm-
level of confidence that
I'm-
this short money compared to an about face
Right.
is gonna be the answer?
You know-
Because I have a problem with going down a road and then having suggestions at the beginning and then being like, oh yeah, we should have done it the other way.
One of these gentlemen lives in town.
Yeah.
And when I called him originally, we had 20 minutes of going back and forth, and he said, let me just ask you a stupid question. I said, sure. He goes, did you and I work on the Bagnell School? I said, yes, we did. He says, does the Bagnell School work? Have you ever got a complaint? On and on. I said, no, yep. He goes, this system is going to be better than the Bagnell School system. So,
Bill, can I ask, so if, let's just say, the devil's advocate, let's just say at some point, a few years down the road, we're not getting as much water. Can we at that point just swap out the size reserve tank and put a larger one in to help the system along?
I'm sure you could, yeah.
So if for some reason we find ourselves that it's running, because right now we're really only talking one field, the utility field. We're not ready with the other green space
Right.
yet.
Or is there a way to make it so it's forward compatible to do that?
Right, so can it just be a larger storage tank added on there when we start to add more fields?
Of course you can.
If that's the problem.
Yeah, but what the thing is, yes. But, and the point that I made to him, I just said to you, he said, you can do anything you want, but he kept pointing saying to me, Bill, you got 21,000 gallons of water down in there, you know what I mean? He goes, you got more than capability-wise to do that, is what he kept saying. I don't believe you're gonna have a problem, you got more than enough water down there. I guess how they do it is when they actually drill the well, they actually push the water out, and that's how they get the gallons per minute, when they know, that's when they do their calculations or whatever. But, to your answer, yes, it can definitely be. According to Tom Talbot, he said, I will guarantee you can run 3 fields. 4 hours, it's gonna be a runtime. He went overboard. He said, 4 hours of runtime each field. So 12-hour runtime, you'll do 3 fields. And that's what he said, so. And I said to him, listen, I don't wanna go out and sell this thing and then make myself look like a fool. He goes, listen, I wouldn't tell you if I didn't think it was gonna work, so. And I've done enough of these myself to know, like I said, what he's talking about, and I'm confident.
And this would include the silt stuff to stop what happened at the other well? Does this include that, to put those precautions in place in advance?
Okay.
I just wonder how you can, what this fellow is saying can be such at odds with what we've been hearing from the rec committee for so long.
I don't know. Maybe the conversation never happened with this gentleman, I don't know.
And if this is true, this is a tremendous cost savings on the project.
Right.
It saves over $130,000.
I think what I heard when the rec department
I
was
like
here, or the rec people were here, I think they kept thinking that that system over there is not going to be able to bring up water. It's gonna run out by adding another field onto it. They didn't feel that that system would have enough water down there to bring up to water those fields.
Right.
That's what they were thinking.
Yeah, they were concerned with the gallons per minute that the new well can produce. That was
Right.
their concern from the start.
Right,
But that's,
But with the holding tank,
and the silt screen,
right.
that
And
mitigates all
21,000 gallons of water a day. You got water there. I also think I heard someone say there wasn't enough water down there. Well, according to him, there's plenty of water down there.
Well, I found it hard to believe that you're next to a river and there's not enough water down there. That was my problem to begin with.
I know the gentleman that drilled the well, he was the first guy that I called and had the conversation with. He was pretty irritated that they weren't using that well. He's like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that well. There's nothing wrong with it. He went on and went on. And he said, we drilled the well at the Bagnell. Yeah, that was iffy because, there was some bedrock involved and whatever. But he goes, there's plenty of water here. And he goes, I'll give you the guy's name, call him, have a conversation with him. And I did, and we talked for quite a bit. And I called him again this morning, and I went over everything with him again. I said, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I don't want to go there tonight and talk about this if I don't want to. He goes, nope, Bill, not a problem. I'll even send the quote to you by 5 o'clock.
at this price, you could fail 3 times and still save $23,000. I mean, I'm just doing, I can't help it, I'm a numbers guy, but I keep adding it up
Now,
and
how I
saying,
looked at it, let's just sit there and say, this well's left alone. It's left alone for that one field. You could drill another well in another field and still have money left over and do the same thing in a different field. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like,
each field could have its own well at this price.
exactly, for what you're gonna do. And like I said, if you're drawing water out of a river, there's maintenance involved. You gotta drain that system down in the fall, you gotta pull the pipes out in the fall. There is maintenance involved. There's a generator that the oil's gonna have to be changed in it. There's a maintenance involved in pulling out of the river. You know, it's a generator that runs, it turns on, it's a pump system, and there's maintenance involved, I'm sure. I mean, you could probably help me.
We did. That's exactly what we use at the schools.
And imagine at that point, the state well loves to get involved in projects like this when you're pulling water out of a river, right?
I'm sure the Army engineers and the boat ramp would like to get involved with that.
But this avoids all that.
Right. So, back to Denise's question about forward compatibility and being able to build this so it's future-proof. Would it be advantageous or probably forward-thinking to put a bigger tank in initially than is needed? just in case, since it's so much cheaper than everything else? I mean, how much extra are we talking to up the tank size?
I can find out.
I mean, well, I'm just thinking, if we're gonna do it, and we're spec'd out for a, whatever, 700-gallon tank, should we just put a 1,000-gallon tank in there and make sure that we can put everything?
119-gallon storage tank on the quote.
I asked him that question. He
I'm
said-
asking you,
No, I got
do you
ya.
think it'd be
I could ask him
worthwhile
it,
to do
when I
that?
asked him the question about putting like 1,000-gallon tank in the
Yeah.
shed. He's like, there's no need of it. You're wasting your money. He's like, there's no need of it. He kept going back to the point. You got 21,000
I
500
get
gallons
that,
of water.
but you know Murphy's Law, right? So, I
Maybe
would,
this summer we get hit with the drought,
right, I mean, if I was building this, I'd overdo it, right? When I built my addition, I completely overbuilt
Yep.
it.
I could go back and ask him.
That's just my thought. I mean, the board can vote the way they want, but I
Well,
would
it's-
think that might be a prudent way to go about building something, just in case 3 wells going all day, or 3 zones, or 3 fields going all day, starts to, put a strain on that system, the way it's spec'd
Right,
out.
but my point that I just made was, if you have money, let's just say you only used 1 field or 2 fields, you know what I mean? There's still so much money, you could do a well in each field.
Yeah, but we don't wanna do that
No,
either,
but
right?
I'm just
I mean, if we're
saying,
gonna
you know what I
save
mean?
money, we're gonna save money,
Right,
but if we're
right.
gonna build it,
Right.
and build it right, and build it forward compatible,
Right. Well, I can go back and ask him about putting a bigger
I would,
pressure tank.
I
in
would
there
like to
and-
see what that cost difference would be, just in case.
Right,
That way,
right.
if we start to run into issues, we're not saying, we should have gone into
You've got a
it.
119-gallon tank.
200 gallon.
That, to me, that ought to be at least a 500-gallon tank.
Well, it's, what the tank does
If
is
you-
actually builds pressure. It builds pressure for get you
line,
from
yeah.
55 to 75. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're, basically what you're doing is you're running off the storage tank, and so, which is a gravity feed system to the heads.
Actually, what the tank is actually doing, it's helping you build pressure. It's called a pressure tank. It's more pressure than anything.
Yeah.
There
It's
is
pressure in
storage there.
storage, yeah.
It's pressure in storage.
Yeah.
You know
All right,
what I
so
mean?
same thing you have on your oil burner.
Right. In a lot of houses that have bad water in their yards, you may see those big ones in their basement, they're like this big,
Yeah.
round, big ones, and some of them small ones. The bigger round ones give them the more,
Yep.
you know what I mean? So if you want, I'll go back to him and I'll call him tomorrow and ask him, I did already, I had the conversation with him, he's like, there's no need to do it, but I can get a price from him for a bigger pressure tank.
You've got so much wiggle room between what you have now and what they had proposed, that, I mean, why not? Even if it's a little overkill today, once we get the Pines up and running the way we all envision, the way it will be, it may not be enough to,
How many fields
Mike.
run off the existing, how many fields run off the existing well now? And this is what he told me, and I'm asking, not Denise, but how many
It's
fields?
2 fields in the town hall complex.
That's what he said to me. And
So-
there's no pressure tank.
Correct. But I will say that, I mean, I don't know anything about wells, but that was like a 50-gallon per minute well when it was built. I don't know what that translates to in terms of coverage, but it produced much more water as a well.
I
That
don't
much I
either.
know, but I don't know what it
Yeah.
means.
All right, I'll go back and ask him that question.
I have to believe this is one of Selectman Dunn's bailiwicks, as far as
Oh, I
I can
agree.
see. I mean, this is what you do.
Right.
So I've got to defer to the expert.
And the only reason I'm saying, and I get what Mike's saying, I agree with Mike's saying, if you had a bigger pressure tank in the building, and we're using, what I say, 4,500 gallons of water, right? So if you put half of that, if you had 2,000 up there of water, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's security, for sure. It's 100% security, to have it in there. I could find that out, and I'll explain it to him that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth getting a couple of
Sure.
other options
Yeah,
on top
I'll
of it,
ask him.
just to see.
Yep, no problem.
So then, I'm just gonna throw this out. I guess the question, so if this is something that the board supports, it's then a matter of funding. So, the existing CPA article for the Pines has $125,000 left, which was supposed to cover the irrigation and so on. Now, that was approved at town meeting under the Recreation Committee and myself as running that project. So that's something to think about, that if you, I don't know how that would work as far as tapping into those funds. I mean, obviously, Recreation is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. You'd have to, at some point, I think, engage community preservation to see if that's something that then the board can authorize. I don't really know how that'll work. Well, I didn't want to put Mike on the spot, so I.
He's always here. He's got to be on the spot.
But so that would be,
You
you
got
know,
125,
it's 125,000 left in that project.
and he's proposing spending approximately 55. If I do my math, that's $70,000, right?
Yes.
Please, please, jump up to the podium if you object us saving $70,000.
Well, no, this is actually, I'm sorry, on top of that, they were requesting 180,000 on top of the 125, for a total of 300 and something thousand.
Jump to the podium if you object saving $250,000.
Are we gold lining the speed bumps down there?
I don't know, but this is, I gotta believe that nobody in their right mind could object to saving $250,000. But go ahead and give it a try.
No, no. I would say I personally don't object, and, you know, I appreciate Bill's input on this. I think we had one meeting of the CPC, and, you know, I don't want to speak for the committee, but, you know, I was concerned about the extra cost because they were coming in asking for $188,000 more. And still, as Denise said, there is already $125,000 left in there for the system. So the system, basically, they're talking about a system for, you know,
Too much.
too much, yeah.
I'll do the math
Also,
for you.
You're gonna do the fields too, right? You have to finish the fields with that money. Am I correct?
Well, I think that's why they were going for.
I
more-
understand.
Yes.
More money, right.
Yes.
right.
They wanted a fence. I know they talked about a fence, finishing the field, and I don't think it was all the fields. I haven't really read the new proposal. I think it was, they were focusing on the utility fields, because obviously the survey that we all put out was asking what people wanted down there, in the other areas. So I'm not sure what else it entailed with that money, but yes, we'd need to still finish the field once we irrigate it.
But it give us a few bucks to finish it now.
Yes.
Yeah, so if perhaps Bill came to the next CPC meeting and talked to the rec people and it could get resolved that way, that's one way to do it.
When's that?
Because, February 7th.
But when they were, the thing is, and I understand what Denise is saying, when they were here before us, my impression was there was no bending. They wanted that,
Well, but they have to get it through CPC first,
right,
so
right.
we, as I say, at our last meeting, the committee wasn't excited about the proposal, and we
Okay.
were gonna ask for some more input on it,
Okay.
so.
And you know, I don't think they should view it as you're trying to usurp their authority. I
No.
think they should just view it as, here's a knowledgeable
You
man,
know-
rolled up his sleeves, got
Right.
involved, and could save
But-
us possibly $130,000.
It goes back to, and again, I got criticized on it, but it goes back to when the Bagnell School project was put forth. There was a proposal from the CPC, and I had put a proposal for doing what we ended up doing forward, and I was criticized because people got aggravated and mad that I was undermining their project, which I wasn't. I put another project forward to look at, and that's all I was doing.
Yeah, I know, but if you're gonna get upset by being criticized, you're in the wrong business.
No, I know.
You know that.
I got no friends now for being in
There
politics.
you go.
Right.
So what, you got
Neither do
nothing to
I.
lose?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Thank you, Mr. Dempsey. Appreciate your input.
Okay, so, we went over that. I'll go back and fix those two things. And we're into old business. I can run down my list, but I know it's getting late, but, the road commissioner's job position, that's moving along, Denise, pretty good?
Yep, I have 3 interviews for tomorrow night scheduled, with hopes of having candidates before you. I'll jump ahead a little bit. Selectman Watson will not be here at the February 4th meeting. So my plan is to have him at the February 19th meeting, come before you, the next batch of candidates.
All new?
I'm not sure. I'm still looking at submitting 3 to you. I'm not sure. I'm interviewing 3 tomorrow night. So if all 3 are better, in my opinion, than the last group, then I'll submit all new. If one from the last group still stands out, then maybe you'll see him again. I'm not sure if you'd want to see, one of the candidates again, or if you want to give the new candidates an opportunity to interview. I guess we could talk about that on the 4th.
Well, Selectman Wood missed the opportunity to interview the last time,
Sure.
so.
You mean the 5th? Right, we're gonna have that meeting on the 5th. Just a suggestion. It's gonna be a
Okay.
late night on the 3rd.
I would definitely like to, the candidate that I had originally said, I'd like to, if we could, at least interview him again or whatever.
Bring him back?
Yes. Then I will postpone this one other charge I wanted to talk about. Fire department consultant, we're moving forward with that as well.
Yep, he's coming before you on the 4th to make
Okay.
his presentation.
And how's the survey doing that we sent out? Is that getting a lot
Yeah,
back?
we're still getting quite a few
Good.
back.
Okay, so I talked to Tom.
Can I,
Oh.
how long do you think it'll take you to tabulate the survey results?
To be honest with you, I was keeping up with them, but they're coming in so quickly. Hopefully, well, not by the next meeting, because I'm on vacation next week, so, soon. I figured that they'll be due, February 1st is when the tax bills are due, so that's pretty much when they'll wrap up. So probably by the 19th meeting, I'll have, the database for you of results.
Okay, so as I said last meeting, I would go and find out about the water department building being used as storage. I did have a conversation with Tom on the water department. They will, and can vacate that building anytime we're ready. I do believe the building is perfectly fine for storage. I think all floors are good. The top floor is not heated, the bottom 2 floors are heated. The middle floor, I call it the ground level floor, is more drier. But if you had like tables and more things that wouldn't get ruined, you could put them down in the basement. I don't think the building needs much as far as storage goes. Maybe put in some kind of lighting where at night, I know there's one light, but I don't know what you do for security, if records need to be secure or not. But I think it's perfectly fine. And I think if you guys wanted to make space and move things around town hall and needed to use it for storage, I think it would be perfectly fine. So if you want to bring that up for a future agenda item to talk about.
I think it'd be a great idea, once they vacate their space.
Well, I can tell you, I had that conversation and that's not going well, so.
Well, I would say even before that, ideally, if we could start emptying out the vaults with the older records that are not sensitive, and we could move that somewhere else and empty all the existing, the back room, and then that would make room for new stuff, so that will buy us some time. Well, you won't see it yet. Every year, the town clerk has put in her budget that we need space in this building. She's running out of room in her office. I mean, it's just a way to, the town accountant has boxes piled up again. It's just a way to free up space here. We don't have any other place other than the back room now and the vaults, which are completely at capacity. So, if they're able to vacate space there and we can start moving some stuff down there, it's really ideal for people in this building.
Do you know when they're expected to move into the? I mean, I live right down the street.
I-
There's a lot of work going on, which is great.
well,
It looks good.
Yeah, but,
I won't, I mean, let's just say minimum July, maximum September, October. But right now, there's a couple things that are holding the project up, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I'm sure weather's one of them, but it looks good.
No, it's my time. I don't have time to put out their bids.
Oh.
So,
Oh,
I
weather.
told them to hire an engineer. They're an enterprise fund. I don't have the kind of time to dedicate to their water and sewer projects. I just don't.
So, that being said, my point was is, if we were able to get that room cleaned out back there, I know you meet with a lot of people, you do a lot of interviews and what have you. This is just my thought. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, and I know your room's hot. I've been in there in the summertime. If we were to move you into that corner, and then you were able to meet people and sit at that table, the big table and what have you, and finance board meetings and what have you, it's a start. I think it's a start. Like you said, clean out the vault, clean out the other offices. I mean, the elections are gonna come, we're gonna need to clean out. And I would definitely think that highway, I know we had a mild winter so far, but if they had some time, we could move them down there and do a little bit of cleaning in the building. He told me he said there's probably a day or two worth of cleaning. He said the outside's a whole different story, because he has to break apart some bins, and that's gonna be springtime. I said, I don't think they care about it. I think they care more about the building than anything. So he said, yeah, if you gave him, let's say a week, and he said, that's fine. So if he had a week, he can clean it out. So that wouldn't be a problem. At least we start the process, that's what I'm saying.
So is it more they don't wanna spend their own money, they'd rather use a resource?
I think it was more convenient for them that I'm here as the chief procurement officer to do. And I've said to them, like, again, I don't write the specs. I put all the legal requirements, put it out. When I get a set of plans and then have to put those out to bid, I have to translate that into verbiage. I just don't have the time. There was a holdup on their end getting stuff, and then it started budget season, and
But an actual procurement officer's position is not to go out and solicit bids, isn't it? Isn't it you get the stuff together, bundle it up, and move it on? You don't go out and actually try to figure out.
right, so my role should be, here's what we need to bid on, here's all the specs, here's everything. I take that, put it with the legal requirements, post it, open the bids, award the bid, write the contracts.
Right.
But it's almost like with some of the other projects, Pines related, I'm getting, well, we need an irrigation system. I don't know the first thing about it. I don't write those
And
specs.
that's
That's
where
not
you-
my job to do.
Right, and that's where
And-
we gotta stop that.
Right, so they had hired an engineer that did some specs and did some work on it, but then it came to me to then fill in some blanks, and I said to them, I just don't have the time right now. So they were gonna go back and hire an engineer to do, they always used engineers doing their work. I said, it's time sensitive, I know you're waiting on it, it's budget season, I have tax bills due, I'm short-staffed in the office, I just don't have that capacity. So, and I've said to them, as it is, I think we should entertain some agreement with the selectmen and the water and sewer commissioners that we're getting compensated for work that town employees are doing for the enterprise funds. I said, I'm doing work for you. The town doesn't get compensated for my salary to do your procurement. So I think that's something that should be.
I think you're right.
So in the meantime, I told them to go back and have an engineer, prepare the documents, post them, and then as the procurement officer, I would award the contract once the bids come in.
And I definitely, you don't have all the knowledge and
Right,
what have
that's
you.
not- I don't
and
know anything about
I
this
wouldn't,
stuff.
me personally, wouldn't expect someone to do something that doesn't have the knowledge. I mean, that makes sense.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I agree.
so I don't know where you wanna go with that, but, just let you know I brought that up. And then, I spoke with Lynn, Stanton on the COA van, and asked her if she had talked to, given that to the highway to look at, and she said basically that, it's our responsibility. Basically because she doesn't have the right to go down and call them and say, hey, come look at my van. It's, our responsibility to do that, so we should be setting up to have that van taken over there to look at.
I spoke with Billy. He said, yeah, have her give me the quotes and the estimates for the work that needs to be done. And I said, she never got any estimates. He said, ideally, that's what I would do. I would get the estimate, and then I would go and look at that stuff. So I don't know if he would just look at it overall. I don't know. But that's how he said he would normally handle it.
Well, I think we ought to send her a request to send it over to the highway department.
Just send the van over?
No, send the.
Well, quote, she had gone on their website and looked at the 60,000 mile checkout.
Or should we ask her to send the van?
Can he just send the van over there and let him go through it?
o-
Let Billy go through it?
Why don't we send the van to, say, a dealer?
It'll
where
cost
they-
money.
We don't have it fixed. We just get the estimate of what they say is wrong. Then we have Billy confirm, yes or no. This needs it, it doesn't need it. He's trying to sell you something.
I'd send it to the highway to Bill first.
Yeah,
He's pretty sharp.
he's sharp.
And,
He'll do it.
and then let him
Right.
tell us what's gonna.
Yeah, definitely. I agree
And that's
with
not
that.
gonna cost us, that's not
It
gonna
won't
cost
cost
us
us a
any money.
penny, and it'll take him a few hours to go through it. And we gotta, I'm sure he's busy with sanding and the roads and whatever. He'll have to fit it into his time, but if we could ask him to get it over there, let him go through it when he can.
Yeah, but we can't do that. I mean, it has to be on a day that it's not being used. They use it 5 days a week.
Yeah, it'd have to be
So
on
we're
the
gonna have to
weekend.
schedule when he's available, that they're available.
Okay,
So I
so-
mean, I can email the two of them, but,
Right.
it's not like it just sits here Monday through Friday,
Right, okay.
so.
I just tried
Okay.
doing my piece. Okay, you talked about that already. And, I think that's it. I'll get, it's getting late, so.
Selectman Watson?
Yeah, going back to what Bill brought up, the survey, I've had a lot of comments about that. Probably, the most comments were about one to a family, one to a homeowner, or one to a tax bill. And the comment would be that perhaps, husband and wives have different opinions. And, husband may not have the same opinion of the wife, and they both should be able to weigh in on it. And then if you look at it, there's also, maybe some of the younger voters in town have a different way of looking at how some of the funds should be spent. So that was one comment. The other comment was about the splash park.
What splash park?
The proposed splash park was part of
There
the
was a
survey.
splash park listed on that survey. And the question was, where are they gonna get the water from? And it was basically, they haven't got enough water for the fields right now, so that probably should have been explained. The other thing was on the skate park. You're talking a rollerblade park, you're talking an ice skating rink. And I had several comments on the question on electronic voting, and people just didn't seem to understand it. I had several comments about, people say, well, gee, I'm not good on a computer, and, I'm gonna be sitting at home and voting in the town election on a computer, and, what's the security of the vote? And no, this is, you go to a town meeting and you'd get a tablet of some sort, and you'd vote at the town meeting. It would, nothing to do with sitting at home and watching the meeting or doing voting. So that wasn't explained. I don't think a lot of people really understood that part of it. There was the other question on the recreation center. The question was just the recreation center, and they wanted to know, they talked about, well, how big? What's it gonna be used for? Where's it gonna go down at the Pines? And so that made sense. And the other one was the first question on the town manager. They said that that was the only question on the survey that was explained in a couple of paragraphs, and they thought that if you're going to explain it, why weren't some of the others explained? And if you're going to explain it, how about an opposing view? So, and then the last was that they didn't like the idea, they're coming with the tax bills and coming down at the, dropping them off when you drop off your tax bill. They thought that there should be a box out in the lobby so that they could deposit those surveys in, and rather than, they say, well, you're bringing them into the treasurer's office along with your tax bill, and what's stopping her from writing your name down after you leave? So that seemed like, we've set a box out at the lobby of the town hall for, the town clerk does for the town census, and this probably would have made sense to do the same thing. So there were just some questions about that, and I thought they all made sense. But one to a family, that just seemed a little different, depending on which the husband or the wife fills out the survey. They have different opinions, and maybe it should have been sent, instead of sent to the taxpayers or the tax bill, it might have been better off it be sent to all registered voters. And I know that would have been a cost, but that's all I got.
Well, hindsight being 20/20, here's our first crack at this, so, if we didn't get it perfect, I guess it's understandable.
Do you want me to respond to any of those, or?
If you'd like, but I mean, it's awful difficult. I think the survey was just basically to kind of gauge, get a temperature of what they like, would really, without trying to get into too much specific detail.
Wasn't it strongly agree, strongly?
Pretty much. I mean, it was, I think it was designed specifically to be a little bit vague. Again, to judge the, the temperature where the consensus might be leaning
Right.
more than, hey, we want to spend $14 billion on a water filtration system so everybody gets clean water. Probably a little too much information to begin with. As we begin to tabulate the results of the survey, maybe then we could more refine the questions to be more specific in nature to really get to the root answer that we're trying to determine. But I think overall, it was a good first pass. We didn't have much objection when we started. Like I said, I've never thrown an interception on Monday morning, just a few on Sunday afternoon. Go ahead.
I just want to comment about why the box is placed where it is. There's actually more people that we found going through the mailboxes after the mailman comes, looking at the interdepartmental mail. I actually don't find things that are just left in the hallway or secure. The staff in my office don't live in town. They don't care about the results of that survey. You can check every single one of them. There's no names on them. There's no addresses. And more people have dropped them in the outside mailbox than have dropped them in the office. So it's not that anyone's going through them, looking at them. No one knows who left any survey. I think one came in when someone wrote their name on it, but that's why it's not left in the hallway, because people will go through it. And I just don't think, there are people in the building that will see someone come in and run and say, oh, did they leave a survey? And Caitlin's answer is, I don't know. She's not paying attention to who drops what in there. So that's why it's where it is.
When you tabulate the results, there won't be any names next.
There, no, because I don't know who dropped
They're
them
just
off.
numbers.
They go from the boxes to me in a random pile. I don't
The way
know.
I understood that, it was a straw poll.
Right.
It was a straw poll. It was a straw poll, and if we have 6,000 people who live in Groveland, you're gonna have 6,000 different opinions of what that was all about. But I thought it was a straw poll for us to get a good consensus of what, and help us with our, going forward.
I thought this board approved that unanimously, too.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're all at fault. Moving on.
Moving. You have none, selectmen's reports. Mr. Wood? would you like
Yes.
to start?
So I did meet with Senator Tarr's office, I think it was last Thursday, with him and two other representatives from the state regarding Verizon and some of the other issues with cable providers in town. The bad news is that I did talk to Verizon also, and outside of the project they're finishing up doing in Boston, there's no plans to expand anywhere in the state with Verizon Fios. And I had some lengthy conversations after I left the State House on that. So I did look out to some suggestions that the state reps did suggest. Again, those options aren't available in Groveland. The only thing we have, as everyone knows, is Comcast, satellite, and DSL. If there's any other options, and the state actually, to see if there's any other options that may present themselves coming forward. But other than getting the fastest internet that Comcast has, which I think is what I have, the 1 gig, and trying to stream things, there's no other cable TV providers for content that way. So it stinks. I'm not giving up on it, but that's the latest. The other thing I have on Friday, Denise and Bill Dunn going with me, is a meeting with Senator Tarr and I think Representative Mira regarding the Valley Screw building on Washington Street, the Superfund site, to get some updates from the state on the status of that. We did get some information by email about what the state feels the status is of that building, and then also maybe talk about what other options we may be able to pursue with that building and any funds that may be available for us to use towards that facility. So that'll be Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And that's it for Selectmen reports.
Awesome. Thank you for the update.
I think you've heard enough of my win for tonight. Let me just think if there's any important. No, I think we can. The only thing I was gonna ask, and I know that we've been busy, like every conversation goes longer, but if we could move the selectmen's time up in the agenda a little bit, just because every time it gets to the end of the night and then we run out of time and we never seem to be able to you don't wanna keep everybody out late, but I know it's hard to do when you have a lot of big topics when people, like tonight, but, that's it.
It is
That's it,
difficult.
I've said enough.
Okay, well, we have a big meeting on Thursday. It's a meeting of the three towns, Board of Selectmen's, finance directors or town managers, along with the superintendent, now relocated to the Switzer School at 6 PM. Basically discuss what contingency plans would be for a catastrophic failure of the middle school or high school, and to discuss the ongoing project for the new proposed middle high school. I don't remember the last time we had a meeting, we just went over basically construction groups, what we
Yes.
picked.
So we met you didn't attend the last meeting, you
It
had
was
something else that night.
Tuesday.
Yes, so the last meeting was another overview. We actually had quite a few members of the public in attendance. We actually looked at building materials, we had some samples of different types of brick and, I don't know, whatever the material would be to put on the building. We looked at different colors. We talked about the building structure again, saw the design. Didn't really make any decisions. That will be, our next meeting is the 12th of February, and at that point, we should have some idea of what's being submitted as our final proposal. We hired our CM at Risk that's doing the cost estimate with the architect to come up with a more realistic cost based on the assumptions at this time.
Right, we picked that the meeting before, I
Yes,
think.
so they have started to work on their cost estimate. And forgive me, I don't have them in front of me, but there are 2 dates coming up that has to be submitted to MSBA for their final approval before the town's vote.
Right, I think one is February the 20-something, if I recall
Yeah, I think
correctly,
so.
and the other one was roughly at the end of March, because it had to coincide before our April votes.
Yes.
And that's about it for my time. Selectman Watson, Selectman reports?
Yeah, just one, I was at the CPC meeting. You brought up 6 or 7 projects. There were some questions on some of them, needed some more clarification, and people would be invited into the next meeting to answer some of those questions. That's about all I got.
Do you still hold office hours as well?
Yes.
Have you held any in recent memory, or?
Yes.
Now, are those typically private discussions, or are they things discussed that would be of relevance?
No, the door is open for anybody to walk in if they have any comments, questions, and anybody can come in. It's not closed door, everything is open.
You have some?
Yeah, I believe 3 years ago, part of the stipulation to hold office hours here in Town Hall was to report back to the board, much like I just did in my meetings and what I talked to and who I talked to about, who you're talking to and what you're talking about. That was part of the stipulation of holding office hours here in Town Hall, and in 3 years, we haven't heard anything about those meetings.
Well, I have no recollection of that. I'd like you to look that up and give me a copy of that. Nothing held in secret. Sometimes it's just heading some people in the right direction. They don't know where to turn. They don't want to come to a selectmen's meeting and talk about things. So you head them to the right department or the right place to turn. And it's not something that's not done in other communities. That's where I got the idea from, with a selectman in another community. And nothing is, when I asked him about, how do you report back, he says, I don't. He says, it's just part of your job as a selectman to try to help people out, and that's what that's what I do. It's not, no decisions are made. You just listen to the people and try to head them in the right direction.
Well, the person you were talking to in another town, that may be another town, but I'll have to find the meeting notes, because I distinctly remember that the stipulation of this board, and it was voted on, that in order to hold office hours here in the town hall complex, the reports of the meetings and who you're meeting with were to be disclosed to the board. I always say who I'm going to meet, what I'm talking about, and where I'm going, not as an individual, but as, a representation of the board, and I get the approval of the board to be that person. If I'm talking to someone on the street, or if someone asks me a specific question, I come back and do my best to say, hey, someone on this street talked to me about a specific issue, and I want to bring this forward. Is it all right if I talk to the state or some other entity about this topic? And the board will say, yeah, or no, why don't you have them come in?
I don't recall any of this. This all predated me.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was 2015-ish, 2016-ish. But I'll go back through the notes and the meeting minutes and find it.
Well, I'm gonna continue to do what I was elected to do, is to serve the people. That's part of serving the people, and I'm gonna continue to do it. If I'm shut down for using the facilities here, I'll do it elsewhere.
Well, that wouldn't be an issue if you were doing it elsewhere.
Well, I'd like to see that paperwork. I have no recollection of it, so give me a copy of it.
Okay.
I won't have a copy of it. It predates me, obviously, so I can't
I'll
help
go
you
through
there.
my files and find it.
So, moving right along, we have correspondence. We have a non-compliance letter, Mr. Timothy O'Connor, for failure to meet the conditions set forth at the November 28, 2018 dog dangerousness hearing. We also have a response from Mr. O'Connor regarding the non-compliance letter. We have minutes from the January 7th, 2019 meeting. And now we roll right into Finance Director's time. So take it away there.
Just a couple quick things. In front of you, you have your fiscal 2020 budget books. So we will start discussing those as normal. We'll put a placeholder on every meeting going forward if you have questions. If you want to discuss anything more specifically, the Finance Board has already started meeting with departments. They started at their meeting last week. So start going through it, make your questions, make your notes, and like I said, we'll just start adding that on to every meeting to discuss.
Oh, I love this time of year.
As I mentioned previously, Selectman Watson will not be at the February 4th meeting. I just want to ensure that the other three of you are planning to be, because we need you all for a quorum, so I know Mike doesn't want to be here, but are the rest of you planning to be here on the 4th, so we can continue to hold the meeting?
I'll just take a sick day. I'll be
It's
here.
the day after the Super Bowl, isn't it?
It is the day after the Super Bowl, so.
18 years to the day that they won their first one.
So I just want to know how I'm handling that. As long as you'll all be here, we can move forward, but,
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
okay.
Cool.
Well, assuming we're all alive and kicking, we'll all be here.
I'll bring
Excellent.
some leftovers.
So we will proceed with that meeting. Once again, I've partnered with Red Cross to hold blood drives throughout the year here in Town Hall. The first one of our 2019 season is Thursday, February 28th, from 1 to 6 p.m. here in this room. We have it on our website, it's on our Facebook page, and it's on the bulletin board out front. Those that are interested can visit redcrossblood.org to sign up. There is, once again, a critical need for blood donations.
Will they offer the,
We don't have the room size to do the platelet contribution, so they have to just do the standard blood drive.
is there a bigger room that we could offer them to do that?
Not in any of the municipal buildings, no. This
How
is
big
the
a room do they
largest
need?
space. They need more space for the beds, they have to, it's a more,
It's a
it's a
machine.
bigger
Yeah.
process.
You know,
It spins it out.
it's pretty great,
Yeah.
because you don't really,
When is that again?
The first one is February 28th. So they're all Thursdays, they are all 1 to 6. And I can just tell you briefly, they are February 28th, June 20th, August 15th, and October 31st.
Okay.
And then lastly, I will be on vacation next week. So Caitlin will handle posting your agenda on Thursday. As of right now, the only big item I have for that fourth meeting is the MRI consultants to come in and present the fire department review. If anything else comes up, I'll add it this week, otherwise she can add it for you next week.
And that's presented to us first, right? Nobody else
Correct.
got a copy of that
No one
to
has a
review
copy of it,
and
it will
go
be
through it and
presented
do
to
whatever
you,
they
and then
want
it will
to do?
become public, yes. I am going to try to not access my emails, but as always, you guys can call or text me if you need anything, but I'm gonna try to avoid my emails for the week.
That would be good.
And that is all I have for you tonight.
Terrific. Selectmen's time. Selectman Watson, it's time to get under the table.
I'm all set.
Selectman Dunn.
I'm good for now, it's getting late.
Selectman Wood.
I am good.
Okay, I'm gonna give a real quick, Mr. Steve Sargent did a great job keeping the board informed of the storm emergency as it was transpiring. At least I got the emails, I hope you all did.
He just sent it to you as the chair.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you, Steve. You
Thanks
did a
for
great
keeping us
job
informed, Bill.
communicating. Kudos to the highway department. I gotta tell you, if you've been outside of Groveland, you know what I'm talking about. It is a stark contrast in any other town I've been in, and I've been in quite a few in the last couple of days. You know, you could be blind and know when you've hit the Groveland town line. You can hear it. You don't have to see it. So a tremendous amount of respect and gratitude goes out to every member of the highway department for the tremendous job they did in keeping our streets safe, far and away the best streets of any town around. Massachusetts ought to listen up because your highways were terrible the night of the storm, not even near the conditions of our roads. So maybe you should learn something from our folks. Hopefully everybody's staying warm. Go Pats.
Go Pats.
That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn at 9:03.
Second.
Motion adjourned in a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all those in favor? Great. Motion adjourned.
And I need signatures, please.
Really, what did